All right, mate. How's it
Nathan, how's it going?
Mega bright in here. Let me just put that light off.
Nah, you're right. I don't have that option. It'll either be it's either this bright or it's just going to be an absolute pitch black. So, how's things, mate? You okay?
Good, man. Good. All right. What about you?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. Keeping busy as always. I can assume yourself as well.
Yeah. We've got a few things going on just now. So
yeah, no. Well, thanks for accepting the invite for filmmakers on filmmaking, mate. Trying to get it off and running. It's just quite interesting to have a talk with other filmmakers and like the Scottish industry and all the rest of it and like what we're doing and stuff. So, but no, it was good. It's good to especially talk to yourself, and obviously because we work with quite a lot of the same people as well, don't we? So it's a lot of connections, that's for sure.
yeah, no, it's good to chat to other filmmakers as well. I quite like doing the podcast thing. I mean, you get a lot of written interviews and stuff like that via email, but I like doing the podcast thing because you can have a proper chat with people.
Yeah. I do like podcasts myself. Actually, it was good to go on I've done one so far for Jacob Tower, but that was before we even shot the thing. So it was he's saying he's going to try and get me back on. But yeah, no, they are good to get out there and like as you said, like I'm one of these guys that likes to pick everyone else's brains. Do you know what I mean? So I'm sure I'll be picking your brain tonight for a bit. So
that's not going to take long then.
Well, but I've got quite a lot of questions, mate. Like obviously we'll talk filmmaking in general and all the rest of it. But here's just one right off the bat, which is quite a hard one, right? So when you think about this, but I can see you've got a case behind you, and obviously you keep yourself busy with film. But what's your top 3 films of all time?
Oh man, that's quite a difficult question. It's one of those things. It kind of depends what sort of mood you're in. Like, I love action movies, so I love stuff like, Van Damme's Hard Target and whatnot. But, if you're talking about from the perspective of like serious filmmaking, if you want to call it that, I quite like a lot of Martin Scorsese films and Clint Eastwood films. They're probably kind of in my top. So, stuff like Shutter Island, The Departed, Cape Fear, stuff from Eastwood like Gran Torino. So I've never really thought about the kind of top 3 because it's such a difficult thing to narrow it down to, because there's days where I would say like Lethal Weapon's one of my top 3, but then other people have got like Citizen Kane on the list, and so you feel
I know you have a mixed variety, don't you? I mean, mine's quite mixed, but here's one for you, right? And it's a very unfair one, but you literally only have 3 films left that you can only watch for the rest of your life in this island. You have to pick these 3. So what's the ones that you see on TV and you can watch at any point and it's just on for the rest of the film? I mean, there's too many of them, isn't there? But like,
yeah, do you know what? I probably controversial, but I'd probably pick The Expendables 2 just for acting, and it's such an easy watch.
Yeah.
Probably pick Mrs. Doubtfire because it's something to laugh at. Like, if you imagine you've only got 3 films to watch, so you kind of need to pick something for every mood. And then the last thing, I'd probably pick something. I'd maybe pick $1 Million Baby. So if I was in a bit of a sad mood, I'd have something sad to watch. Yeah,
so
I reckon.
You like Eastwood then? Like as you said, I love Eastwood myself. I mean, there's a film that made my favourites. Like the thing was, like, I've got my top 3, but I've got like a favourite film list. So not necessarily the greatest films of all time, but these are like my favourite film, and it gets bigger and bigger every time. But what entered that was, one of them was Gran Torino, but one of them was Richard Jewell. You ever seen Richard Jewell?
No.
The
one that you directed?
Yeah, and it was to do with the security guard with the bombing.
Oh yeah, and Kathy, what's her name's in it as well?
Bates, Kathy Bates. Brilliant film, absolute stunning film.
Okay, check it out.
I mind watching that in the cinema. Actually, it was absolutely brilliant. But Nah, $1 Million Baby again, like that hits hard at the end, doesn't it? It's quite a sad film, but it was
Yeah.
great.
I actually really like The Changeling as well because it's one of those films I think is quite underrated and obviously based on a true story of I can't remember I think it was the chicken coop murders they were called, but it kind of sets out as a mystery and it's one of those things that unfold in kind of so many different layers and goes off in so many different directions. But it's the fact that it's based on a true story you're kind of like whoa. But yeah, I think that movie's pretty underrated.
Yeah, no, like I think he gets filmmaking for sure. Like, I mean, he even if he's not in his films, they're pretty solid takes. Obviously there's Sully as well, isn't there, with Eastwood? Like that's a great film. He's done so many good ones. Even that what's the one he done recently with the drug?
The Mule.
Mule. I thought that was pretty good myself, to be fair.
That was pretty good, and his movies still look like movies.
Yeah.
That's the thing, if you're a bit of a sort of cinematic purist and you want to go back to watching something free of CGI that's got a decent story and a decent cast, it pretty much hits the nail on the head just about every single time.
Yeah.
Cry Macho was a bit. I was.
It's a hard watch actually. Cry Macho. I don't know. I would agree with that actually. It was quite a hard watch actually. Now that I think about it.
Yeah. I'm not entirely sure what the intention was behind that. I feel like it, it might have been a bit of a repeat, but it would have probably been better if they took it off in the Gran Torino angle towards the end, because the story was sort of inconsequential. There was nothing. There was no sort of he kind of showed the boy a bit about life and kind of got him on the right path kind of thing. But you feel that that's the predictable angle. It would have been good if they managed to kind of take it in a slightly more dramatic and a direction that had consequences for the characters as opposed to just sort of like meandered along.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that actually. I mean, Gran Torino is as a film again, like kinda gave me a lot of inspiration for Jacob Tyler as well, because it's not just the story, but it's the tone as well. Like I love these films that have like a lot of my favorite films I've got like this kind of more darker, kind of greyish tone and more serious notes, and not spectacular dialogue, but like it hits at home, if you know what I mean. So it's like Prisoners is like my favourite film of all time. I don't know,
Prisoners is fantastic.
That's the film that wanted me to get into filmmaking, and it was again just like yourself. It's one of these kind of dialogues. It's very simple, but holy shit, there's a couple of kids have just gone missing, and then things get serious and all the rest of it, and then you could see from Hugh Jackman's, but and that's I still don't get how that didn't get any Oscar buzz at all, because I thought that it was just incredible, throughout the whole thing.
Yeah, and it's one of those ones that's sort of found almost a second life on streaming, because it always kind of comes to the top of anyone's best thriller list, but at the time it was largely kind of forgotten. I mean, that's the sort of movie I like as well. It's dark. It's about something that's, quite a sort of scary reality, you know what I mean? A kid going missing. But the performances were really good in that, and it's on for like 3+ hours, and it just it goes like that because it's so engrossing.
Yeah, it's like you said there, which was interesting, was the fact about it is because it's like something that can happen in real life. Stanley Kubrick once said that his scariest film of all time, it was what was it called again? You might be able to help me out in this one. It's about a guy, they go to a petrol station and his wife goes missing all of a sudden.
It's The Vanishing.
The Vanishing, that's the one. And but it's not a scary film, but the whole point of it being scary is because it's a real life thing that it could just happen. And and Kubrick apparently got very paranoid after that film, and because it's this could actually happen. Do you know what I mean? That's better than any jump scare that you put into screens. Do you know what I mean? So
no, I would agree. It's the downbeat ending in it as well, and I think that those sort of life situations. I've always found stuff about serial killers and people going missing and whatnot much more horrifying than you know, like jump scares or stuff like, you know, Scream or whatever, you know, those just mainstream horror. I've always found those sort of situations, and the Changeling kind of falls into that as well, because it's that sort of horrifying situation of you know, her kid's gone missing. She's got him back, but it's not her kid, and everybody's trying to convince her that it is. And
Yeah.
it's a kind of got that Rosemary's Baby angle where she's trying to convince everyone else that there's something going on and no one believes her. And I think that's quite a horrifying thing. I think there's probably a difference between sort of horror and something that's horrifying. It's a different kind of
exactly.
it's a different kind of fear.
Yeah. No, you're so right, man. Like, I've always said that people say to me, "Oh, that film's very scary." I say I'd rather be spooked than scared. Do you know what I mean? Like something that you're just like, what? Like, oh my god! Like, and sometimes like maybe after a second viewing, it kind of hits you a wee bit harder because you're just not realizing the first time around that, holy, like, what the that's actually quite unsettling now that I think about it. And that's the power of filmmaking though, to allow that to happen. Do you know what I mean? Like, because like the likes of The Conjuring 2, what a film, right? But again, it's one of my favourites. But again, it's a jump scare thing. Do you know what I mean? And it is very towards that. And James Wan knows that, and he does well with that whole thing. But the difference is like you can still go away from that movie and be fine. Do you know what I mean? And like kind of life goes on. I need something that holds on,
stays with you
to me for a while. Yeah, stays with me, exactly.
I actually found The Watcher on Netflix was quite unsettling in that regard, and it's probably one of the few times that when I've finished something, I'm sort of like looking through the blinds and stuff like that, when you're sort of tiptoeing around your house thinking, where's the Watcher? But like that, you know, after you've watched something like The Exorcist, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, that's scary, let me just go to bed now. But, you know, The Watcher's a little bit more based in reality. I think that's what makes it so unsettling.
Very like, I thought The Watcher was very underrated, to be honest with you. I thought it was really good because, again, maybe like from our filmmaking perspective, like they hit the nail on it. Maybe there was a few false stuff that wasn't needing to be in there, but I thought it was really good. There's quite a few films that are like that. It's like You're Next, Hush was one of them. Actually, have you seen Hush?
No, don't think so.
So Hush is a film that is to do with this deaf girl that lives on her own, but there's like intruder trying to get into her house, so she can't hear shit. But this guy is like playing tricks with her, and like it's the fact that she can't hear shit with him being in the house and stuff is like it's quite horrifying.
So there's this kind of similar film called See No Evil, although I'm pretty sure it's also called Blind something, I can't remember, but with Mia Farrow, where she was blind and she was being stalked by this serial killer. Great concept. And that was kind of not infuriating, but you were kind of like, you sort of panicked for her because you put yourself in that situation of what if you're being stalked and you can't see, because that would probably make a good remake, because it's I guess it's like anything else from the 60s, 70s, you know, you're looking at it and thinking that's a little bit tame by today's standards, or not boring, but some films from the 60s and 70s have got great concepts, but just because of the sort of pacing of cinema at the time, they're very slightly uneventful compared to what people would expect these days.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, mate. Like, I mean, would you agree with me? Like, back in the 70s and 80s, that was probably pinnacle of horror.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, probably all of my favourite horrors, Exorcist, Don't Look Now, The Omen,
I was
Rosemary's Baby.
About to ask about Don't Look Now, and it's again just one of those endings that literally you're just like, what the hell, and why is that horrifying me more than it should? I mean, like, just because it was just this random little lady that just ends up killing him. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, it was just so weird. But The Omen again, like, it's so good. Like
Carrie as well.
What was that? Sorry.
Carrie as well.
Carrie,
great. It's a pretty good one.
Again, like there was a scene in Carrie that she was just looking in the mirror, and like that sound kind of came on, and for some reason that just spooked me. Like, I don't know what it was. It was just like just a moment. But again, like the mum kind of made you very unsettled throughout the whole film as well, didn't
Yeah.
she? Like,
Yeah, the sort of psycho characters, the sort of unhinged characters are all. See, I feel like that's the sort of thing that was better played back in the 70s. I
yeah,
don't know whether it's because the films are older, you're sort of, it's more horrifying, but certainly I think that you don't get such colourful characters like that in as many modern day horrors. Halloween obviously from the 70s as well. So I'd say if you take it decade by decade, I reckon the 70s has probably got the majority of the horror classics in that decade.
yeah. No, I would agree. I will eventually get round to these other questions, right? But because we're stuck in this subject, I feel the need to keep going. But with because I'm a big horror fan, and obviously I want to talk about Baby in the Basket later on after I get through this. But see, as you were saying there, like I saw a film recently, and again it's similar to like Don't Look Now. Like, have you ever seen Sleepaway Camp?
No, but actually, where did I come across that film recently? I don't know if it was in the conversation we were talking about Baby in the Basket, but we were having a look around some horror icons or names and whatnot, and I think Sleepaway Camp's come up a couple of times, and even stuff like I work for a film distributor in my 9 to 5, so. That's the sort of thing that pops up at film markets as sort of like spin-offs or inspired by. I haven't seen it, but I've seen that thrown around a few times recently.
Well, I want you to see it now because like
Right.
the ending was just like not like scary, but again like I just like it's a hard thing to describe, but like I'm not scared. I'm not like I'm not keeping up all night and stuff, but it's just the fact that like it was such a well executed ending, and it fucking freaked me out with like, okay, I did not see that coming whatsoever, and it's the fact that like there's this person that again it's actually very iconic that it's in t-shirts and everything. It's the kind of stare that someone does to someone, and it's like very inhuman sounds that it's making, and it was like I was like that, like you just kind of get that kind of shiver down your spine and stuff, and I'm like, what the like that is actually insane. But like, it's quite funny at the same time because it's like because today's stand, if you were to make that today, everyone would just be pissing themselves laughing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, but like I know that kind of it's the way that they do the music. You know how like the music with like even Don't Look Now, they well execute how she turns around and then that music hits you, and you're like, oh, I've just got shivers. But the scariest experience I've ever had in horror was in my Nat 5 English class. I'm not even kidding. It was the original Woman in Black.
So I've not seen that, and the Blu-ray keeps popping up on Amazon. So it's one of those things that I need to go and because I've seen some stills from it, and it looks just really atmospheric.
Mate, I couldn't sleep for weeks. I was a 15, 16-year-old kid, and I could not sleep for a week. And I'm not kidding when I say that, and I'm proud to admit it because mate, this film really, really fucked with me so much. Like, and I thought the Daniel Radcliffe one was also really good, but this original one was like, holy crap! Like that actually, like because it's so old as well, and like how well they done with the cameras and the makeup and it's actually free on YouTube, mate. So you could probably watch the whole thing on YouTube. So.
Okay. Yes, I mean, I think that older horror films, I don't know because it's of a specific time period, there's something a bit more horrifying about them, and I can't really describe it. It's almost the fact that it's old, if that makes sense. And that doesn't really make any sense, but I feel that there's sometimes a little bit too much polish and whatnot on modern horror films. I think that older horror films manage to keep an atmosphere really, really well. So how do the two Women in Black compare tonally, if you know what I mean?
Tonally, very similar, but the only thing you can say that's unfair about it is that one's very, very modern and technology. So, but the problem is, the reason why I think that the original is still so much scarier is because they're shooting on digital, and like when you shoot on digital, like everything just feels so real. It's in front of you. They have to go with what they've got. while in today's world they can maybe use a wee bit of special effect to kind of give you that wee bit of oomph. But I don't like that. Like I prefer to see something that's much more real and all the rest of it. Do you know what I mean? Like the only film that I think that, and it might surprise you a wee bit, that like it kind of helped, like Halloween 1978 is one of my favorites of all time. But and I thought the 2018 version was still really good because it built suspense up amazingly.
Yeah.
With the woman in black and all the rest of it, it's still, you could just see the production value just went a wee bit up, and you don't need that. You don't need that to make it like a great horror film. Do you know what I mean? Like, but watch both of them. Let me know, because they're my favorite horrors of all time because of that. So.
Right, okay. I think sometimes in horror as well, it's what you don't see that's horrifying. If you look at Rosemary's Baby, if you look at Don't Look Now, if you look at The Brood, the David Cronenberg film, the reveal in these things is not until, 2/3 into the film, sometimes more. The Brood especially, because, you see these little creatures running around. Same with Don't Look Now, you see little flashes of it and you're thinking, what the hell's going on there? Is that in his imagination? And, Rosemary's Baby, you're always kind of thinking, oh my goodness, how horrifying does this baby look? But you never see it. But that in itself is like the essence of horror. It's not what you can see, it's what you can't see that's horrifying.
Yeah.
And I think we've probably lost that quite a lot, because modern audiences prefer just to see as much of it as humanly possible. And I think probably with The Baby in the Basket, that's what we'll try and go back to a certain degree. We're not going to go as far as Rosemary's Baby, but I think visually we're going to have to show something. But again, we'll try and build up that suspense based on the audience's own imagination of what they can't see, but they're thinking, holy shit, what's going to happen here, kind of thing.
I'm actually very excited for this concept of Baby in the Basket, mate, because as I was saying, I was going to mention Rosemary's Baby in there. When I was looking at the crowdfund and looking at the donations and stuff, I saw that yous were inspired by the likes of Rosemary's Baby, the first Conjuring and stuff, and I was like, okay, well, obviously I'm going to watch this and I'm going to invest in it because it's very interesting. Do you know what I mean? So I'm very excited to see it. When do you start shooting, actually?
So middle of September, so not that long. Not that long.
Ewan was telling me that because I'm putting him under a lot of stress at the moment with some possible additional shoots for Jacob Tyler,
right.
And he's just it's like you can just see that he's just caught. Which you said we wrapped ages ago, but it's one of these things you have to do. You know what I mean? So
yeah. No, it's sneaking up on us pretty quickly. It's like sort of impending doom, and Tom's script for it's really good. So in the back of my mind, I'm always like, I'm going to have to, do this justice. I mean, it's one of those things when you're on the set, everything kind of falls into place, touch wood. But it's quite a big undertaking, and we're doing it just about back to back. I think we've got 2 days off, and that's it. But that's quite useful in a way because you sort of immerse yourself in it. I'm used to shooting in chunks. It's just more manageable, especially at this sort of level. But just because logistically we're bringing people from all over the shop, we're having to do it as a kind of one and done. But hopefully we're going to have the right combination of, gothic horror, bit of mystery, bit of suspense, a little bit of gore in there, and then, sort of visually horrifying as well. But we're trying to tick quite a few boxes. It's kind of aimed at the A24 horror crowd, but maybe a bit more mainstream, because that's the thing, horror these days tends to fall into different brackets. I mean, you got something like the runaway success of Terrifier 2. That was purely based on that character and the gore that's in the film. But we're obviously trying to base this on the concept. So I guess it's just about doing that concept justice in the film, because there's so many different directions that we could have taken it in. But I think you kind of want to stay on this trajectory of things going wrong, and then sort of accumulating, and something happening at the end, because we did discuss it's very ambiguous whether the nuns are right, and whether it's the baby is actually the spawn of Satan or the son of the devil, or whether the isolation and the storm and their own sort of imaginations driven them mad. And that hopefully is the kind of ambiguity that's going to transfer over to the audience as well, because you don't want to spoon feed them, you don't want to give them too many clues. Ideally, you want in a situation like this, you want the audience finding things out at the same time as the characters on screen, and not being a step ahead of them.
Yeah, no, I've actually never been a big lover of that, to be honest with you. I think that it only makes sense, and it only makes sense when it comes to like something like Jacob Tower. He needs, like, when if it's historical Jacob Tower, then he finds out who's actually behind all this problems. Do you know what I mean? Like, not the audience first, because then,
Yeah.
I mean, it only, maybe it works on a TV show, it works on like other things, but because there's no one main character, do you know what I mean? But like, you could tell like who's the main character, who needs to find this out quicker, and because there is times, like, I mean, even from comedy's perspective, like, someone goes away and then the audience finds out, oh wait, he forgot this thing, or something's happened that he's never going to find out, which is a sad reality. But I agree with you on that one. I think that the character needs to find out himself, because then that adds more realism to their reaction. So, and yeah. I think that's what happened with Texas Chainsaw Massacre as well, didn't they? They fucking bullied them people, didn't they, to find out about Leatherface and all the rest of it. Fuck me, man.
I think I mean, you do have the kind of thing where, and it's an interesting thing to play around with. I mean, not in this example, but showing the audience something that the character on screen doesn't see, so that the audience is panicking for the character that doesn't know. That works quite nicely, and I can't think what film that happened in. That I really like, whereby the audience kind of, you find something out and you're sort of going, oh shit, when's the character on screen going to find out? So, you know, you've almost been given a preview, but I can't remember what film that was. But that's quite an interesting technique. But it depends what sort of route you're going. Baby in the Basket, by and large, isn't massively twisty. Because there's developments every so often. So to me, there's a plot twist and a plot development. A plot development kind of enhances the story or moves it on, whereas a plot twist takes it in a direction that you don't expect. And I think you've got stuff like The Sixth Sense, where you've got a big twist at the end. Don't Look Now, I suppose you could classify in that. But then you've got stuff like Alien that just plays it kind of straight up. I guess it depends on the individual film. I mean, I do think that twists are good in films, especially these days where it feels like everything's been done. It's quite good to take something off in an unexpected direction, as long as it doesn't kind of jump the shark. But
yeah, I would agree, mate. Like, I mean, I don't know if you're maybe a regular cinema goer yourself. I mean, it's a silly question, but would you say?
I'd say probably once, twice a month. We usually go. I actually usually go with Ewan quite a lot. So what did we see last? Mission Impossible. So I've seen that, Oppenheimer recently. John Wick 4.
I had to go and see Barbie first because of the girlfriend, but I'm going to go and see Oppenheimer in IMAX soon. I wanted to save the good occasion for that, and then I'll go and see Mission Impossible after that. So, but then again, I'm still missing out on Indiana Jones at the moment, so I've still to kind of, think of that. But like that leads to my question. I mean, like, see.
Good, man. It's almost like I was surprised at how busy the cinema was for Oppenheimer, to be honest, because obviously there's so much else out. But I think that people are almost a little bit fed up with CGI and sequels. Like Fast X, Indiana Jones 5, Mission Impossible 7. They've all kind of underperformed, and Oppenheimer was mobbed. And you're thinking maybe people just want to go back and see real stories and real drama, and not a sort of overabundance of CGI. That's kind of what I took from that. And it was weird going to the cinema to see an actual story where you didn't have just chaos on screen the whole time.
Does that not annoy you, but mate? Like, I don't know about you. Like, does that not annoy you? Like, the non-regular kind of cinema goers, like, they always assume that like a Mission Impossible, so it's the 8th one, but it's the 7th one. Sorry, but they say that they don't realise that the films are getting better as they go along, and they're becoming less CGI and they're more stunts. It's more real. It's the same with, like, see Christopher Nolan. The guy hardly uses a speck of CGI. Like, he's used this bomb as a real thing, and then it's like, it's because people aren't investing in it enough. But see, if they went and they did invest themselves, I think that they would realise just how much better it is. And this is why I love the conversation with, like, what Nolan talks about is, like, if you're going to go and see this, go and see it in 70mm IMAX, because you will, like, experience the whole thing. Like Quentin does that as well. He says that when, even if it's just Hateful Eight, but like again, it's made for that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that people have kind of, yeah, I don't want to say forgotten what real films are. I mean, you look at the Marvel stuff, and I know that a lot of people like Scorsese and, like countless other people have come out and said, oh, these are more like video games or whatever. I mean, they're entertainment, they're escapism, they're sort of switch your brain off and just enjoy the spectacle. But I do think that people for a bit turn their back on real films, with real stories. And I'm not, criticizing stuff like Marvel because they've made a fortune and they are entertainment. But I think that you got to have a balance in the cinema. I think you got to have real good stories, good acting, good drama, something that you just come out the cinema and go, wow, not because it's been overloaded with special effects or stunts, but just because it's a genuinely good film. I mean, the Mission Impossible films have really hit a good run, and I think that sort of trying to remain pure in terms of the way that they're put together with the stunts and whatnot, is done them credit because people seem to be interested in what's coming up next. Fast and Furious has kind of went off in the other direction where it's now become so overblown and with so many sort of ludicrous characters coming back that it's almost become boring. Whereas, you watch Mission Impossible and, start to finish, you're engaged just because they sort of take you on that ride. The pacing's perfect and they've thought out the sequences start to finish,
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Again, mate, like a lot of my favourite films are like a lot, I wouldn't say a lot, but quite a few Marvel films are my favourite films, but it's a select few. And then you have like obviously Endgame was a great film and all the rest of it. I mean, I'd still say Infinity War was a bit better, but like it kind of started to lose its touch after that. It's like they said that they had a backup plan, but they've not really done well with it, have they? Like they have started to just throw out more content than anything and like lost respect in the quality because like you can see that they've kind of lacked in the CGI kind of department. While if you see every project that the Russo brothers done, it was absolutely brilliant. Like especially with like the weird thing for me, the biggest critical thing that I had with like Black Panther was that that looked like a fucking like PlayStation fight. While if you look against Black Panther versus Bucky in Civil War, it was just hand to hand. It was like all out battle, and that's what I loved about it. Like I like films like The Raid and stuff. It's just all out, action and like it's steady cam, and just watch these people fight. And I take a lot of inspiration for that with like Jacob Tyler and hopefully future projects and all the rest of it. But as you said, it's people really have forgot like what real film is and like what you're so capable of. Do you know what I mean? Like I just don't know where all the money's going either, because it's like you probably don't need to spend that much on like some good stuff. Do you know what I mean? Like just
I think Marvel would have probably benefited from a break because it feels like the end of the Avengers was this sort of culmination of where everything was headed, and it was obviously billed like that, this sort of like cinematic event, and for them to just immediately start on the next phase, as they call it, just after, I think they could have done with maybe taking a 4 or 5 year break just to build up the hype and let that recover. Because to me, the whole superhero thing, certainly in its current form, where you've literally got multiple superhero films coming out a year, kind of started with the original Spider-Man stuff back in 2001 because it didn't really let up, after that, and it hasn't done since. But I think they could do
so
with taking a break.
Like you just said there, like see the original, the first two, like the second one in my opinion is you can't touch that. You know what I mean? Like there's like a select few superhero films that are just so ahead of its time. Like for me, it's like Spider-Man 2. There's The Dark Knight. There's Logan. Like these films, like as you said, like they just hit different. You know what I mean? While I thought the Homecoming franchise, apart from like the third one, again is just full of nostalgia and it's absolutely brilliant. Like I'm there for it, but story-wise, for a lot of these things, like they miss out in a lot of bad like things. Do you know what I mean? Like it's quite disappointed in. Like where I thought the marketing for the Amazing Spider-Man 2, like I thought the first one was really good. The second one, it's not perfect at all, but you know, the fight scenes in it. There was no overuse of CGI. Actually, they kind of cleaned it up quite well, but it was just probably the story was just lacking a wee bit. But they done everything right, just apart from kind of the story side of it, didn't they?
Yeah, I think that there's things that come along every so often that sort of revitalise action cinema as well. Because like The Dark Knight or Logan or something like that, those kind of feel fresh. Taken, for example, if we're talking non-superhero movies, it was just back to basics. It literally could have been a Steven Seagal movie, but it wasn't. But it just took it back to that sort of R-rated basics. Same with John Wick, same with The Raid. They just sort of rejuvenate the genre because they take it back to basics. And I think that a lot of the time things have become way too complicated. I loved Extraction 2. I thought it was fantastic.
So did I.
But, yeah, it's a great film, but you're getting to the stage where you're like, wait a minute, a 25-minute sequence that looks as if it's been done in one take, it sort of becomes dizzying and almost boring. It's a little bit like John Wick 4, the sort of sequence with the dragon breath shotgun. You're looking at it and you're thinking, right, you don't have to do something and then have it go on for 5 or 6 minutes for it to be cool. You could have done that for a minute and it would have still had the same impact. I think there's this sort of misconception that if you suddenly just kill loads more people or add another half an hour onto the film and just, do the same thing over and over again, that it's going to make the film better. It's not. And that sort of one take thing, I think, is probably petering out in terms of its effectiveness because it's something that you've seen so many times. But every so often there's a film that comes along, whether it's a superhero film or another action movie, that just sort of adds a little bit of spark back into the genre because it takes things back to basics or just does something really well.
Gives away a bit of hope, doesn't it? Like as you were saying there, like it does give you some. I mean, I thought you hit the nail on the head there. Like, especially with John Wick, as much as I loved the finale, it was funny because like Liv. She's watching right now, but she wasn't a big massive fan of John Wick 4, and I'm like that. But see, this is annoying me because like if you maybe you wouldn't have changed your mind, but the first one was fucking amazing. Like the first one, and then the second one I thought was the better movie, but the first. It kind of started to have a formula of just doing the same thing, didn't it? It was.
Yeah, I mean, I think by the time they reached the fourth one, actually the third one was, I kind of went to myself, how are they going to top that? Are they just going to keep doing the same thing over and over again? I mean, the fourth one I think was probably could have done with about 20 minutes being shaved off it. The bit when he's going the stairs, you're like, oh my goodness, how long is this going to go on for? But weirdly, the sort of quieter sequences in the fourth one were the ones that I like better. See is it Bill Skarsgård, the bad guy, the sort of scenes that he had with Ian McShane, the dialogue was nice and crisp, and I actually kind of found myself enjoying those scenes more than the action scenes, weirdly. And they had such a good cast in there. I mean, even the stuff like personally, I thought the Scott Adkins fight was a little bit disappointing because, if you watch him in the Undisputed films, he can do some insane kicks, but they obviously went with making his character fat for whatever reason. But the thought was genius, but his dialogue scene at the table was actually more interesting than his fight.
Yeah, it was like, because, I totally agree, mate. I was even saying that to Liv. I was like, I think she was bored at this point, to be fair, but I was saying to her, there's like, mate, he's in a fat suit. Like, he's literally usually like, the guy could literally play Batman, and the guy is in this fat suit, and he's just like this big, massive, like kind of kingpin, basically. And I'm like, well, you easily could have made him like so much more than that. Like, it seemed like it was like a boss level for John in the movie, wasn't it? It was like there was just bosses throughout the whole film. But I think the. Before I'll kind of try and get myself back on track here so that we can start talking about your films, right? But like you made a good point there about Taken. Like there was a time with Liam Neeson. 4 of my favorite films. Maybe one of them isn't necessarily one of my favorites, but there was a time that Liam Neeson made Taken, and then he's made one of my favorite films of all time called A Walk Among the Tombstones.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, and no one knows about it. Like, that's the thing, no one knows about that film. Like, again, the grey tone, I love the kind of the villains in it are just absolutely ridiculous, like how unsettling they are. And
And you're it's weird because it left me. I saw it in the cinema. I would say that's probably one of his best films. And again, it's got that kind of Prisoners tone.
yeah,
So I mean, for me, that's sort of like almost supersedes Taken. But I remember seeing it at the cinema, and I sort of felt totally empty afterwards.
yeah,
You know, like just a bit. It stayed with me for a couple of days, and it wasn't that the story was anything, controversial or spectacular or anything you hadn't seen before. But tonally and stylistically, it was just the way it was done that you sort of just kind of stayed with you a little bit, like Prisoners.
I would say so. Yeah, I think as you were saying there, like the reason why the probably made you feel empty is because like one by one, like all the like kind of main characters were like gradually just getting killed off, and you're like, well, these guys were the ones that really deserved justice at the end of the film, and then it got completely taken away from them, and then like luckily in the last kind of section, Liam Neeson got away with staying alive, but it was as you said, like the two villains in it were just like fucking evil bastards. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I don't want to kind of talk about it too much and in depthly, but they were, weren't they? And then obviously there was Walk Along the Tombstones. Yeah, there was Non-Stop, which I thought was still a good film. I wouldn't say it's one of my favourites. It's still a really good film. And then Run All Night, I thought was a superb film.
Yeah. That was really good. I saw that in the cinema as well. That was really good.
Aye.
That's quite underrated. And Ed Harrison was fantastic.
Yeah, I would put that in the same spectrum of like A Walk Among the Tombstones, with like how people don't know about it, and like it was just such a good film. And you know, is it the guy? What's his name again? The John Wick 2 villain, the bald guy. He fights in the train and the steps. He's in it. He's called Conlon in it, and he has to fight him.
It's the rapper Common, is it not?
Common, yeah, Common. So it is. And he was absolutely fantastic in it as well. And like just the fight sequence in that building, just absolutely.
Yeah, he's weirdly terrifying in it. I don't know if that's because his character's so kind of quiet and sort of nonchalant towards everything going on round about him. But yeah, it was really good in both of those movies.
Yeah, aye. No, like as you were saying, like there was something terrifying, and I think Liam Neeson helped that a wee bit because there was a scene in it when they're in the building, and then all of a sudden he finds out who's coming after them to hire them, and then Liam Neeson says, "If you want to live, go," because it's like there's no chance you're getting out of this building alive if you don't go this way. And that kind of hit home for me. I was like, right, I'm fucking buzzing for this fight now. And then all of a sudden there was, and again, I'm taking inspiration from. We both know how much we love to work with David, but I'm taking inspiration from like some of our fight scenes with what's in that film. Like he's using like kind of burning rocks to burn his face off and stuff. Like it's just absolutely, it was a fantastic film, wasn't
it? Yeah. No, it's good. It's good. I think that it's Liam Neeson kind of. He's almost got a combination of like the Bourne movies and then some of the stuff like the Seagal stuff, the Aikido stuff from the 90s. You know, it's that kind of tactical fighting, but it's still cinematic. And I think that Taken, the fights in that, they are a little bit choppy, but they are really good. And he's kind of kept up that momentum. He's got quite a lot of good. I mean, the end fighting Unknown's quite good. He's got a few good fights. That one and Run All Night. So yeah, it's. I feel that he's kind of been responsible for. It didn't stop at Taken. He sort of had a bit of a run recently. The last kind of 4 or 5. I went on a bit of a Liam Neeson binge on Prime Video a while ago, like The Ice Road, Honest Thief, The Marksman, and Memory. But I was like, I was actually quite disappointed in them all.
He's lost a bit of quality, hasn't he? Like with those films, especially.
Yeah.
I think the last good action film he made, which was a very weird film, is probably Cold Pursuit. Have you seen that film?
No.
You should watch that. Oh, so weird. Like you think it's going to be like this absolute all-out like Liam Neeson action film, but it really catches you off guard with like what like happens in it. It's like it's a very weird film. Do you know what I mean? Like, I get back to on that one. I agree though. Like he's kind of lost a bit of quality, but some of it's still good, but it's not like that time with like Taken, was it? It was like the Taken time.
No.
I thought
that Memory was going to be.
Taken 2 was okay. I think the fights were good in it, but story lacked a wee bit. The third one we just don't talk about. It was absolutely ridiculous how bad that was.
I probably wouldn't have went in that direction. I think if it was me, I would have done one of two things. I wouldn't have called the second one Taken. I would have called it maybe something like Brian Mills, and just went and kind of done a he's just on another mission kind of thing, because I think the whole Taken thing played out, and I think they're doing better just kind of crafting a character a little bit like they did with Jason Bourne. But the other thing I probably would have done would have been to, in the third one at least, the second one, interesting concept. It's not kind of executed that well, but the fights are good, like you say. But I reckon I'd have probably just I'd have killed the daughter in the third one and just still called it Taken, because they've taken her life. And just leave and go out for revenge. That's probably where I would have taken it, because in terms of the sort of stakes, you probably couldn't top the first one, I would have said, which is why it was a mistake to try and repeat that, but without that same sort of that same impact. And then you also had to think where they were trying to like cut the violence down to get a PG-13 rating, and you're thinking, no, but that's what worked well in the first film. I think sometimes distributors, audience producers, at that sort of higher level, don't really understand what audiences want, because if you look at Terminator Dark Fate, for example, I remember James Cameron turned around and said something like, we decided to kill John Connor off right at the start because there was nothing more depressing than making him this 40-year-old accountant. Now, that's exactly what I would have done. I would have made him a 40-year-old accountant and had it so that he had to basically go back and do something with the Terminator. I would have just got the three from Terminator 2 and had them as the leads, because you introduce all these new characters that people are not really interested in, they're not invested in. I remember seeing that in the cinema, and as soon as Arnold came on screen, it just felt fresh and it felt like it was meant to be. But up until that point, you were kind of like, this is not a Terminator film. And sometimes I think that producers or development executives try and complicate things, whereas the audience don't want to see female Ghostbusters. They just want to see what made the first film great. And even if that means making essentially the same film again, I think people would rather see that than them constantly trying to flip the formula on its head.
Yeah, and it's my point with I thought that's why Halloween 2018 worked, but then all of a sudden, and there was such a promising trilogy to that, and then like Halloween Kills happened, and I was like, okay, it was a good attempt. I wouldn't say it was amazing, but like you had a story there, and it builds up for this very good like kind of Laurie versus Michael final film. And then I'm watching Halloween Ends, and I'm like, what the fuck has just happened here? Like, if I just watched this guy beat Michael in a fucking fight for his mask, what is actually happening here? Like, it was, mate, I've actually never been so disappointed in a film, like coming out. Like, my girlfriend, like, Liv was just laughing at how, like, much I was just slated this film so badly, because it's had such a promising trilogy. Do you know what I mean? Like, and it was just completely wasted.
I think that's prime example of directors and producers not understanding what audiences want. I mean, they had absolutely no reason to take that off in the direction that they did, because it's not what anyone wanted to see. And if you're not giving your audience what they want to see, you don't have an audience. I mean, Halloween Kills for me kind of acted as a bit of a bridging film. It was almost a little bit unnecessary, and I think you were talking about The Watcher. There was bits that kind of went off on a tangent unnecessarily. I tend to find that they try and get too many films and too many episodes out of something that it's not justified. I watched a lot of Netflix series and I'm thinking they could have lost 2 or 3 episodes from that and it would have been much better, because I feel like a lot of the time it's filler. You watch Fast X, nothing happens in it. Literally nothing happens in it. They spend 3 hours, nobody dies, they're the same people coming back again, there's no kind of stakes, there's no resolution of anything. I mean, that's what I was saying the other day. You've got Fast 5, Fast 6, Fast 7, Fast 8, Fast 9 and 10. They haven't killed a villain since like 2013.
It's like every single villain joins the team. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like, and then there's like the side villains are the ones that they'll die, but like nothing, like it doesn't really impact you. See, I thought the fifth one was really good. Like I thought the fifth one was absolutely
that's
brilliant film. That's the best
yeah,
one in my opinion. Like because the first
yeah.
one, right? The first one's the first one. It's good, but in quality of like story and stuff, I thought that was a fucking terrific film. And then the sixth one's okay. The seventh one was okay. The eighth one's acceptable. It wasn't great, right? But because like obviously this is when they started having like Dom like becoming this like kind of superhuman guy and stuff. And then like the ninth one, me and Nico were watching it and we were just like what has happened here? Like it used to be like very like yeah, like see even like but the chase scenes and stuff, it's like all these bullets are like firing at these guys and like somehow are not like hitting them and stuff, and like and you're like you're forgetting the realism. Like see that like that safe chase with the car in 5, it's like everything about it was just so well thought out and amazing. Do you know what I mean? Like whether you like the films or not, I thought they'd done really well there. Do you know what I mean? Like and the sixth one, the fights were really good and all the rest of it. And then it's just like the
and I get
X, like,
I get this whole kind of PG-13 thing, but you know if you look at if you look at stuff like Die Hard or Rambo, by the end of it, he's completely fucked up.
Yeah.
But you've got Vin Diesel, who's gone through 3 hours of total trauma. He's fought Jason Statham for 7 minutes, and they've been rattling each other off kind of bonnets, and his T-shirt's still plain white. I mean, like, if you fall on the pavement, there's a chance that you're going to rip your T-shirt or it's going to at least get dirty. I don't know why no one's turned around and went, wait, why? I mean, I get the no blood thing if it's a PG-13, but why is everyone coming out as if they've just come out of the dry cleaner with their clothes? It makes no sense.
That's a good point. I've not even thought about that. That's actually a good point. Like, it was like this ended up having like a fucking sword fight with like parts of a car. I mind that. Jesus Christ.
And no one seemed to actually have any injuries. I mean, you look at even the PG-13 Die Hard movies, Bruce Willis is still a mess at the end of it. And that's one thing that annoys me with the Fast and Furious movies. It's just completely ridiculous how clean they end up after leathering each other for 3 hours.
Like you made a point there again, like Die Hard, like the first 4 were really good. And it seems when they take a break after a while and they switch producers and switch like people, they just never do well. And it's the same with like there was a film like Jason Bourne. The first 3 absolutely amazing. 4th one was very bland, I thought, and it was just like again because like it was just because like new producers are on board and like something's different. Like again, that's why I thought Dark Fate was actually going to do well, because Cameron took over the rights and he said, right, we're going to make a new trilogy. We're going to go back like Judgment Day days, and we're going to give what the fans want. But then all of a sudden it was like James Cameron went quiet again, and he didn't seem to be getting involved as much. And then all of a sudden it's like you're back to square one. It was like Salvation again. I just felt like it just wasn't. Do you know what I mean?
No, I mean, Genesis and Dark Fate, I think Dark Fate's marginally better.
Absolutely,
but overall, it's just like the action scenes are pretty. It wasn't great. No, the action scenes are always pretty uninspired, or they kind of see when you sort of go to the point where you're like, all right, we're going to have to use CGI if we're going to do this. You may as well just forget it, because if you look at Terminator 2, I mean, this is what my writer mate Tom said. He's like, the special effects from Judgment Day are actually better than the ones from Dark Fate. How is that possible? And I think almost CGI has actually gotten worse in the last few years. And someone said something to me about one of my films. They're like, yeah, it was quite good, but the guns look fake. And I was like, no, those are real blanks that we're using. And I think it's literally the fact that people are so used to seeing CGI gun flashes and explosions that they don't recognise the real thing anymore.
Yeah, no, like well, you done really well with like quite a lot of your explosions and all the rest of it in Lock and Load. I must admit, like I've seen snippets of the first Bag Holiday, but like from what I seen, I was quite annoyed for you, because like I heard that you had some sound issues and all the rest of it. It was quite a shame for you to go through that, but that's why I kind of want to kind of see it again and see what like the full kind of clean version of it, because I know we still need to get to that, mate, and I want to dive in that, right? So I'll try and get through this stuff, but the last thing I'll say before we kind of go on to it, the Terminator 2 is one of the greatest films of all time, right? And it's probably one of the most ballsiest sequels you could ever make in a film, because the first Terminator film was absolutely amazing. It's literally about this guy who's just out to kill you, basically, and he's like, and that was his mission. That was the Terminator is literally coming after you, and then the second one he becomes the good guy, and it's like it's another Terminator is coming after you, but then it becomes this more bigger spectrum and like more like it becomes more in depth of like what's actually to do with the Terminators in the first place, and I thought it was just absolutely superb.
Yeah, it's almost like again, I suppose James Cameron's responsible for this. It's almost like Alien and Aliens, because you always think, right, you know, you've got a really good concept, but after the first film, you kind of have somewhere to go with that concept. Otherwise, you may as well just make a one-off. You know, you could just do another mission, or you know, whatever. You know, just make it like James Bond or Mission Impossible, a new mission every time. But you know, Alien to Aliens took that off in a really genius direction. Same as what happened with Terminator 2: Judgment Day compared to the first one. So, and that's rare. You don't tend to see that these days, where they've actually taken the concept and evolved it, but not in a way where they've just made everything bigger. They've actually put some thought into the sort of the ethos and what sits behind it.
That's a really good point. Actually, I think you said that right about Cameron doing that, because like the difference in Alien and Aliens was just superb, and it's quite smart. Actually, it was quite a smart second title, wasn't it? Like Aliens instead of like an Alien 2 or whatever. But like Alien, like because the first one's just to do with like one alien, and then there's multiple aliens in it. I was like, I don't know, like I just kind of like. I get so like kind of nerdy about that. I think that's so smart. Like even though it's so simple, do you know what I mean? Like, but
Yeah.
that's you've now gave me a question for later, but I will get into these now. Like it's good that you've now gave me a question now. But right, I want to know, mate, what is the film that inspired you to be a filmmaker?
Um, Oh, that's somebody else asked me that recently, and to be honest with you, I'm not entirely sure. I mean, I suppose I kind of started off with I remember distinctly two things growing up. I remember watching before I got into the Arnold Schwarzenegger stuff in my sort of mid-teens. I grew up watching VHS tapes of the James Bond movies that my gran had recorded on VHS, and she used to lend me them, and I would watch them kind of back to back. And then the other thing I distinctly remember was watching sitcoms, so Only Fools and Horses, Fawlty Towers, and whatnot. But it was actually Some Mothers Do Have 'Em with Frank Spencer that got me kind of interested in the stunts, which is a really ridiculous reference, but I suppose that in a combination of the James Bond movies is what got me so interested in action movies. In terms of what actually made me want to go and do it myself, I'm really not too sure about that. It's just something that kind of happened, and I used to make sort of like home videos where I would play all the characters and just upload them to YouTube, and then I thought I'll maybe do one and try and get some other people involved, and then before I knew it I'd made 7 shorts, and then I was like, oh well, these are not sort of these have no commercial value, so I was like, let me just make a feature, and it's just sort of spiraled from there, and it's almost like everything's flashed in front of my eyes, because we're now about to start on the 5th feature film, and I'm like, geez, how did that happen?
Yeah, that's class, man. Nah, but I can get that, to be fair. Like it could be the same with everything. Like you just kind of it just happens, doesn't it? Like sometimes it doesn't actually just have to. Because the thing was, when I was younger, I always wanted to I liked the idea of maybe being a filmmaker, but
Yeah.
it was Prisoners was the film that I just thought, do you know what? Fuck, I'm actually going to try this, because like I feel like I can do this, because Prisoners made me believe that you can make such a simple but and like very impactful film, and so did like the likes of Walk Among the Tombstones and all the rest of it. You know what I mean? So, nah,
I
but
guess one of those things where, you know, it's like people, when you say to a kid, you know, what do you want to be when you grow up, and they say, oh, I want to be a singer, and you look at stuff like the X Factor, which was obviously, you know, made popular probably like 20 years ago now, and you're thinking there's not, you know, we need all these nurses, but you can't have all these singers, if you know what I mean. There's not enough places to be filled for, you know, everyone to become a singer, everyone to follow
Yeah.
their dream. So when people say, you know, what do you want to be when you grow up, there's a sort of ridiculous, unattainable answer, and then there's the, right, okay, now what do you actually want to be? Oh, I want to be like a doctor or a painter.
Yeah.
And that was kind of one of those things when I started off, especially on the features, I was thinking, this is a sort of ridiculous pipe dream, but then things kind of snowball and you're like, oh, this is very, very, very slowly becoming reality. I mean, even if it's on a sort of level that's down here, you're like, well, maybe this isn't so ridiculous. It's like anything in life, you know, if you want to kind of shoot for something and you're determined to make it work no matter what, you're probably giving yourself at least a reasonable chance with that attitude.
It's funny you say that, actually, and it was maybe a topic of conversation you would have had at some point, but I would have said that the weird thing for me is that I grew up as a golfer. I've got a golfing family and all the rest of it, and I've got a family that have achieved a lot in golf. So for me, I've always put too much pressure on myself to try and like achieve what they can achieve. So I'm gradually getting better at it because I'm just like I'm enjoying my golf now and I'm becoming a filmmaker. But with filmmaking, I don't know what it is, mate, but like it's just like you said. For me, it's actually not hard to become a filmmaker, and like it's just the thing is people keep saying that, oh, I would love to make a feature, right? But they don't attempt in the first place, like in that. And that's the thing, like with Jacob Tyler, like people are like, says, oh, is it just like a wee college project, is it like this and that? And I'm like, nah, I think it's more than that, like because I'm trying to enter to the festivals, and then they look at it and they're like that. I'm quite surprised with that, Mitchell, because you're actually like you're taking this serious and that. I'm like, well, yeah, because like it's actually easier than you think. Like people think that, and I think that's why I don't think that I'll probably attempt to enter short film festivals because the competition's too high. Because I think that people are far too comfortable in the short film industry. While for me, I think if you're doing features, you're more likely to be known because you're going into the feature festivals. You're actually getting out there. I mean, you'll know that yourself, don't you? It's literally just saying, right. It's not how it's it's not like I can't become a filmmaker. It's like, what do I need to do to become it in the first place? What do I do to make this film like a reality? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think part of it is, you know, Rick, there's a lot of people, me included, you know, that have that sort of weekly reality check where you ask yourself constantly, what am I doing? You know,
Mm.
why am I putting myself through this? Why have I only got 200 quid left in my account and a fucking minus 5 grand bill on my credit card? But, you know,
Tell me
you're
about
sort of, there's small wins, you know, you see your film on Amazon Prime, you sign a distribution deal, you're like, ah, okay. And it's, you know, at the end of the day, I would never say to anybody to get in the film. If somebody said, oh, do you think I should do this? I would say, you got to be prepared for this to be probably the most difficult thing you could ever do. I mean, the film industry, from the perspective of financing and, you know, I suppose just general disappointment, there's nothing else like it. You know, it's one of the most difficult industries to succeed in. And I think a lot of it, you know, is a kind of closed door. There's a lot of nepotism. There's a lot of, you know, people kind of looking after their own, and you know, but again, it's like anything else. If you work hard enough at it and you sort of say to yourself, I kind of got to a point where I was like, right, it's too late to go back. If I go back now and just stop this, all that stuff that I did before was pointless.
Yeah.
So there becomes a point where you kind of commit and go, no matter how out of control this gets, I'm going to have to make my shot here, because if I don't, it's all going to be for nothing, kind of thing.
No, I totally agree, mate. I think that people will have to realise that, like, when I was an extra in Churchill and many other stuff, it was you have to realise that you're going to be there for 13 hours a day minimum, and you're going to be, you're going to be tired, you're going to be on your feet a lot, you're going to have to do a lot of waiting about because filmmaking is not as easy as what we thought. because the lighting needs to be in a certain place. Or we have to reshoot this because, you know, the boom mic was in frame. You have to, oh look, there was a Starbucks logo, we need to fucking fix that. So it's like, you know what I mean? Like, people need to be prepared for that, don't they? And like, when people like shrug their shoulders and like, they always say that they want to be an actor, they want to be a filmmaker, they want to be, you know, they want to get involved in sound until they actually do it. And they say, and I give them that question, and I say to them, well, is this actually what you want to do? Because like, this is what it takes to do that. You know what I mean?
And I think that's probably why you see so many people. I mean, there's, you know, countless numbers of people that I worked with on the short films kind of before I moved into features that, you know, DOPs, directors, whatever, have just kind of disappeared off the face of the planet and got a normal job. You know, either because they found it too difficult to break into the industry, or they just kind of, I guess, gave up after a while. And you know, the filmmaking side of it is stressful. There's long days, you're shattered, you get back up and you do it again. But weirdly, once you've sort of wrapped on a block or a film, the next day you go back to your own reality and start working. You sit in your office and you go, oh, yesterday I was like on a high, you know, it was this sort of buzzing. So that's what keeps me coming back as well. You know, it's almost like you thrive on the not the stress of it, but thrive on the sort of constant madness of trying to do something like that.
No, I agree. Would you say, because like, in my opinion, like, every day I'm on set is a better day than your job. Like, I think that no matter, like, even if you're sitting about doing nothing, I think that every day on set for me is when I have the most fun, because like, it's because I'm creating something.
Yeah. And I think a lot of the time, I mean, even just on the last project, you're sort of looking around and, it's actually during those quiet moments you sort of go, this is where I feel like I'm meant to be, kind of thing.
Aye, absolutely. No, I love it. I mean, and that's why I think that, you know, it's a good point you made when it comes to like being prepared to actually be in that position in the first place, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's like just kind of admitting to rejection as well, and just like until you actually do it. You know, like Dan Reynolds was a good point. Like, he ended up making his own TV show through Mismatch and stuff, and like, you know, he done really well for himself because he was like, well, I'm not getting anywhere, so I may as well do something myself. And I think that's a good attitude to have. Like, just like, if it's not given to you, make it happen. Do you know what I mean? So, and I feel like that's why I appreciate you as a filmmaker a lot, because you're doing that yourself. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, so it's a good point there, isn't it? It was my next question for you, mate, is what kind of filmmaker would you describe yourself as?
I mean, I guess you could look at it in a couple of different ways. I like to make, you know, something that's entertaining. I do like genre-based films. And then what I tend to try and do is every second project, you know, so I'll do an action thing, or I'll do a sort of, you know, a sort of fun, really commercial type thing, and then I'll switch to doing something a bit more serious. And we've kept that going back and forth. Even when I did the shorts, we kind of kept that going back and forth. But my thing about the shorts was always to take a commercial Hollywood-based concept, you know, not some sort of depressing, you know, short with two people set in a Scottish student flat or anything like that. I always kind of wanted to do almost like a Hollywood action movie or something in 20 minutes. Then that is I guess an outlook that I've taken onto the feature films as well. So, I mean, for us, you know, purely from with a business hat on, I think if you've not got any name cast in your film, you always need to make something commercial so that you can actually get the best result distribution and sales wise. So that's really why I tend to stick to action and horror and whatnot. With that being said, I don't want to be known as just someone that churns out crap. I'd rather people are entertained by the films. You know, there is a limit. Lock and Load is not meant to be taken seriously. It's meant to be sort of off the wall action. It's meant to be a bit silly. It's meant to be that kind of people are laughing along with us. You know, there's in jokes, there's self-deprecation there. But, you know, at the same time, I do want to make projects that have people kind of going, oh, all right, fair dues. I mean, the next thing, we're working on a crime thriller at the moment, which is really, really dark. And I'm hoping that that's going to be the one where people turn around and go, all right, okay, So I do want to be seen as a filmmaker and taken seriously. Ultimately, even if that's slightly further down the road, I don't really ever want to be seen as a gun for hire. And you know, whether it doesn't matter what the project is, but I think I'd always like there to be progress. So you know, if you take something like Lock and Load, that's just an entertaining action film. If we make something like that again, I'd want it to be better and just the production value is a lot more rounded. And you got to kind of step up, whether that's by making something different and by impressing people with the acting or the story, or whether it's just by making a really fun action film. I think that for me, it's just about seeing progress and growth and people then actually wanting to see what you make. Because I think, you know, you get Quentin Tarantino, for example, it's, oh, the new Quentin Tarantino movie's out. It doesn't matter what he's made, people will go and see it. Like, it doesn't matter what he's made, people will go and see it. And there's a very, very select, Christopher Nolan as well, very select number of filmmakers where people will literally just go to see a Christopher Nolan film because they know they're going to get a good movie.
Yes.
And I'm not saying that it's realistic for me to reach that stage, but ideally it would get to the point where, you know, people were kind of waiting to see what I do next.
Yeah. No, like, but I agree with you, mate. Like, if I'm honest with you, like, if I was to say that myself, and what I try and achieve myself is that I'm writing with purpose, and I'm trying to make the best project as I can. You know what I mean? And not, I don't want to half-arse something anymore. Like, especially with Jacob Tyler, I'm very disappointed in myself that maybe I could have shot a bit like extra, not like for the film, but just like shoot like more scenes like repeatedly and stuff, and just like do more for it, and maybe just made like listen to my sounding and say like, do we definitely need to do this again? Like I shouldn't have said that. I just says, you want another one? Okay, let's do it. Like just like don't, you know, pressure yourself to moving on. Like you have to make it right. You know what I mean? So because like that was the problem. We've got a reshoot coming up, just like a tiny reshoot for me and Liv, and it's quite annoying to happen, like when you're so close to finishing it. But as you said, like Tarantino and Nolan, I think are two directors that have hardly made a bad film yet, and like in like the way it's kind of what I see like as myself, because like I would like to say that like my project, like Jacob Tyler, people are going to say, okay, that was a really good effort, because I did put a good effort into it. So like, that's fine. So my next one, I'm going to put the best effort as I can into it, and then we move on. Because I've got projects lined up, I've got stuff like that, but I do want to not just make something for the sake of it. Do you know what I mean? Like we get too caught up in like sometimes meetings and stuff and say, oh yeah, that could be a good idea, that could be a good idea. Right, we'll work on that. But then it's just like, well, I remember there was this one time that one of my mates said, oh, you should do an idea for this. I'm like, I guess so. And so I was like writing, I'm like, this isn't the story I want to write. Do you know what I mean? I need to start making film. Like I want to write stuff for me, and like and know that the audience will appreciate and they'll like the story themselves. Because like we know ourselves, like we know good movies for sure, right? We know what are good and what are bad, and you know what the audience want at that point, because you've watched so many years worth of cinema. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
Like would you like now like as I said, like as the goal, as you said, like you want to kind of put a wee bit of realistic part on it, but that's definitely how I see it. Try and you know, do it with the best possible intention. So like for me, I still think Jacob Tyler can have a sequel, because I think there's a good story there, but I'm not doing it out of force. If I can't find the story for it, then just don't do it. Do you know what I mean? Simple as that.
I think it's one of those things, like, you know, improvement, you know, you've not got exponential resources or money, so you know, time and money is always the two main parameters that restrict you. So, you know, working within your own kind of what you've got to work with, I think the most important thing is that the next project you go, right, I learned a bunch of stuff there, I'm going to take that into the next film. The next film might have the same budget and the same number of shoot days, but automatically you can make it better just by learning what didn't work on the last one. With that, that being said, you know, obviously if you've got those resources, if you've got, you know, a bigger budget the next time, or you've got, you know, automatically that kind of comes with more production days, you know, guaranteed you could shoot a better film in 50 days than you could in 15. But that for me is the sort of progress as well, because, you know, even talking about Baby in the Basket, we're looking at the number of shoot days, and I'm getting to the stage where I'm going, you know, any less than 20, unless it's limited locations, you know, you're kind of going, right, that's just too little. And I get that, you know, every day costs money to bring people to set and to get the location and whatnot, but, you know, if you're looking for progress, it's things that you kind of need to do, because again, you do reach a ceiling if you're working with the same, you know, the same budget and within those same constructs every time. You're only going to be able to get so good before those factors are putting limitations on you. You know, you can't turn around and say, oh, I want to do this, but oh, we don't have the money to do it. So I think that naturally there's got to be some scale to it as well. You know, I don't have 100 million, 200 million to play with like Tarantino or Scorsese.
We relate so much, mate. Like when it comes to, like you were saying about the £200 in the bank account, and like, and you know, you use a credit card when we know we shouldn't, but we do, because that's the thing. Like, if I think that's what people need to prepare for themselves as well. It's like, maybe you might not make money from it right off the bat, but it's exposure, and it's a start. And it's like, if you actually want to gamble on yourself, and if you're that confident in doing it, then you have to. Do you know what I mean? There's no other option.
Like, and I think that, you know, we are kind of starting to do a thing where we're ideally making every project will have at least one name, even if it's on a sort of smaller level. Because as I said to Tom the other day, he's the Baby in the Basket writer, I was like, it's not just the fact that you've got extra sales value from the fact that your film's got a name, as it's the kudos that comes with that. People start taking you more seriously because you've worked with X, Y, and Z. You know, it's the longevity of the film on streaming, because people are more likely to watch it 5 years down the line because it's got a face in it they recognise. And I was like, even from, you know, just your IMDb looking a bit more impressive, I think that, you know, there's a knock-on effect of these things, you know, of making better films, you know, of having slightly more money to play with, of having a couple of recognisable faces in them. I think there's a knock-on effect, and ideally you would hope that that encourages even more organic growth.
Yeah, and that was a question I'll talk about in Baby in the Basket when it comes to budget, because obviously you've got, well, I mean, it is a decent budget, isn't it, that you are going to be working with this time, isn't it? So
yeah, I mean, I think between so I've gone from Lock and Load to the next project that we're working on and Baby in the Basket, we've sort of jumped up a bit of a level. So between Lock and Load and the crime thriller we're working on, and then Baby in the Basket, the budgets have basically doubled. But again, you know, in 2-3 years' time, I'd be looking to move on and do, you know, double it again kind of thing. I mean, made 3 features at a reasonable level, but then this is a sort of jump to the next budget level, and then after these 3 features are done, we'll try and jump to, you know, a kind of higher budget. And to me, that's you know, it's the only way really to grow, because as I said before, you're kind of, if you constantly do things of a level, then you're only really gonna reach a ceiling eventually.
Yeah, no, I've got a good feeling about Baby in the Basket, mate. I must admit, I think that I love the idea of it, and I think that there's, I don't know, you just have that feeling about it, like your concept and how you're exposing it and how you crowdfunded it and all the rest of it. Even your teaser was actually really cool as well. I think that, you know, you've got something up your sleeve here, and there's just a good feeling about it. So
yeah, hopefully, man. I'm hoping that we can do Tom's script justice and you know, actually make something decent. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, people generally don't know how much these things cost. Yeah. So, because I mean, I can look at a film and probably get the budget accurate within about 10 million, or, you know, whatever. I can usually say pretty accurately how much something cost you, and I always do this thing after we've seen a film where we go, what do you think the budget was on that? We guess, and then you go and find out. But you know, I don't know what people think when they look at my films, because obviously we're not working with a big budget at all, not in terms of, you know, the sort of the wider filmmaking community or what other people are making on a scale we are, you know, way down. But it's just about bringing those kind of additional production values to the screen. You can get a lot out of Scotland because locations are pretty cheap here, and you know we've got access to some really good stuff. So to me, one of my goals is to make something for, you know, let's say 40, 50 grand, make it look like it cost, you know, 750 grand or
Yeah,
whatever.
no, yeah, I totally agree, mate. Like, it did look like that in Walking Road for sure. Some of your locations were really good and all the rest of it, I must admit. So, but as I say, I'll talk about Walking Road soon. I've just got one more question for you on the filmmaking and kind of movie side. It's favourite director.
Oh man, I guess it probably would be someone like Scorsese, just because I don't even think it's necessarily from a director's perspective in terms of his style, or even the performances that he gets out of people, but he's just. His films are consistent. You can't
Yeah,
really put one of his films on and go, "Oh, that was terrible." Like that's never happened. I've never
yeah,
sat down to watch one of his films and went, "Oh, that was shit." I
yeah,
mean, yeah, he's got, you know, it's on a scale, you know, there's better films, there's his best film, there's the magnum opus, there's, you know, whatever, but generally for consistency, I think he's probably one of the ones where, you know, I watch a film and I'm like, oh, that was good.
yeah. No, Scorsese, he's made far too many good ones. Like, there's far too many. For me, it's like, if I was to say a five, Scorsese's there. Tarantino's good because, you know, that's the way I look at it myself. Like, he wants to write the next film is his best one, and he does that. Like, I feel like all of his films are just fucking magnificent. But Nolan again is another one. But do you know who surprises me more and more every time is like Spielberg, because I feel like he can make movies in every single genre, if you know what I mean. So like he
Yeah.
just made West Side Story, like that musical, and you didn't think that Spielberg would be like a musical guy, and it was absolutely amazing. And then like you've got an action film, you've got a drama, you've got like Bridge of Spies. There's not really like a lot of like drama in that, but no, sorry, action in it, but it's like
Yeah.
it's just an amazing thriller. Do you know what I mean? Like while um
Yeah, no, you're right. I think for overall, you know, talent as a filmmaker, he seems to be able to turn his hand just about any genre or story.
yeah, like he's got range as a filmmaker, like, and that's
Yeah,
the crazy thing. Like while Tarantino has his style, but like his stories are still. I mean, well, to be fair, he fucking knows how to do action sequences. It's absolutely amazing. Like, but with yeah, like I think he's got probably the most range out of them all. Like, but the thing is, I love Paul Thomas Anderson. I love David Lynch is also a really good director. Like Kurosawa doesn't get talked about enough because it's the black and white kind of foreign side of things. But yeah, like no, I like Scorsese. I think that's a good option though, mate. Because like again, you're talking both Wall Street, Departed, Raging Bull, Irishman, too many. Shutter Island, Hugo, fucking there's far too many. Do you know what I mean? Like
yeah.
I'm probably missing out on the best ones here, but like, what would you say is his best one?
I mean, I suppose a lot of people sort of say stuff like Goodfellas. I was
Goodfellas
never,
is good. Eye.
yeah, I mean, I think probably. I mean, for me, the film that I would say that I enjoy most is either going to be The Departed or Shutter Island. I think The Departed's kind of underrated. It's just so well constructed, and yeah, it's just a film that I watch and I'm engrossed in
It's
every time I watch it.
class. Shutter Island is class, to be fair. But I've just literally forgot my favorite film of his. Without a doubt, is Taxi Driver. Like again, Taxi Driver. I think like it's too good. Do you know what I mean? Like I still can't believe that he had the idea of like writing something like that. It was absolutely amazing. But
Yeah, no, Taxi Driver was good.
right, mate. Let's talk about yourself more than filmmaking, right? I want to talk about Lock and Load a wee bit because I thought it was a very fun movie. I thought it was fucking hilarious. And as you said, like I've finally kind of got the idea now that you've just said that it's a film that obviously doesn't take itself seriously as much. So, and I think that's why I actually appreciate it more and stuff. Like it's a very I like your relationship with like the two like main characters in it, and the action in it. I thought he's done a really good job at. Like again, David's a treat to work with when it comes to that. But some of the jokes and the comedic timing in it was just absolutely fantastic. See the if you were to choose, what one did you prefer? The two of them.
What in terms of the first one and then Lock and
Yeah.
Load? I think no, Lock and Load is a better film. I think that it's it was a sort of natural progression. I mean, in terms of sort of talent as a filmmaker, I think the first one was reasonable. I mean, I think that there was certain limitations in budget and whatever else we're doing, and you get things into edit, and you're like, okay, that doesn't work quite as well as I thought. But I think for overall consistency, the second one was better. And I think it's almost like slipping on a pair of slippers because you've played the character before. You kind of the dialogue flowed a lot better. Yeah, it was a bit more ridiculous in the first one, and it was almost to the point where we're just stopping short of turning to the audience, breaking the fourth wall and winking because we're kind of taking the piss literally out of action tropes by saying them. There was some really kind of stupid stuff in there, but I think ultimately, the first few reviews that have come in have recognised exactly what we're trying to make, and I think that's important because, if the reviewers and if the audience get what you're trying to do, I think that there's a better chance that they're going to like it. And it's, I remember one reviewer turning around and they were reviewing Shrek the Third and they said, oh, the film was too childish. And you're like, it's a kid's film. It's not meant for you, Mr. 50-year-old accountant who also reviews films in his spare time. So I think that if people get it, then it kind of, it benefits you. And that's the hope that people look at it and go, oh, I know what these guys are trying to do. I'm there with them kind of thing.
Aye. No, like that. I would agree. It was there was two films that stuck out to me, and I think it's let me get this right first because I'm trying to because it was like how the thing goes about. It was the type of action along with that, but I felt like it was. It was like The Nice Guys takes on Jump Street, if you know what I mean. Like
right, yeah.
because like you've got The Nice Guys who are just fucking hilarious with Crow and Gosling. One maybe takes it more serious than the other, and then you've got but he's still like naturally very funny. And then you have like the Jump Street when like even though the action scenes are actually fucking class in it, but there also are like some very over the top parts in it as well. Do you know what I mean? So and that's why I kind of took some enjoyment out of it as well, and it was there was a few times that I think that what you achieved well is that like your comedic timing of some jokes really hit the audience well, and I think you need to give yourself a pat on the back for that because it was really good. But the fight sequences themselves and like I thought the arms dealer joke was actually so much funnier than what I probably should have like thought of it. But I was laughing. I was like, kind of still like giggling under my breath for a bit. And David was just like, I don't. You'll know David well. Like when it comes to this, right? He's just like investing in the film. He's doing this a lot, and then he's like looking over me, and he's like, it's funny, isn't it? That was brilliant.
Yeah, no, it's kind of one of those things. 2 seconds. I'm just going to stick the light on.
All right, no worries.
It's one of those things where you go kind of, oh, is this too ridiculous? And then you sort of say, well, look at the sort of film that it's in. No, it's probably not. And there's at times where you're like, would this be too far? That wouldn't even happen. And you're like, never mind, let's just fire it in there anyway, because I think you sort of want to get that slightly unexpected, reaction from the audience where they literally laugh because of how ludicrous, whatever's just happened. But they actually the part where Nick, Derek, and Stokes are all cracking up at the arms dealer's mechanical arm. That was a sort of I tried to do kind of at least kind of half a dozen things that was exactly the same in each film. So in the first film, Nick and Derek had to team up 2-on-1 for a fight. There's a few other things that happens in the first film that I wanted to take on to the second one, and then another one is in the first film they're actually cracking up about. They come in wearing these Santa hats, and there's a bunch of coke on this just before the final shootout. There's a bunch of coke lying around, and Nick sort of tests it, and he's like, you know what? I think it's going to be a white Christmas after all.
Yeah,
And they
I
sort
did
of
see
like,
that one.
yeah,
Is it
so
not
they
on the
sort of
trailer?
like passing.
It's in one of
Huh?
the clips. I think it's definitely one of the clips. I think it's like going to be a
Yeah,
Christmas after all. See, I didn't know
yeah. So
I
that
didn't know the
was.
context of it, but yeah, no.
So that
That was
that
quite
was
good.
the sort of idea behind that, but I wanted to kind of do something like that in the second one as well, where they're just randomly cracking up before everything kicks off. I think I actually took that from Lethal Weapon 4, where they're about to kind of do the final shootout and they're laughing at something, and then everyone pulls their gun out. So I kind of wanted a bit of consistency between them. So yeah, and there's a few other little bits in there that are kind of like a reference to the first film. It's one of those things you don't really need to have seen the first film, but I think that if you did, you'd probably have a slightly greater appreciation for the continuity or
Mhm.
attempt at continuity.
Yeah, and understanding the characters and who they are, and it's like you do want to kind of to do that. Like if I was like obviously in your boots, you would prefer that. I was kind of I never really got myself a copy of it and all the rest of it, so that's why I never got to watch it in the first place. But when I got the option to come and see it, I was like, yeah, absolutely. I would like even the opportunity to talk to Nathan because, like, obviously hearing your name from everyone else and that, and not obviously having the opportunity to talk to you and like much earlier in life, like during Jacob Tyler and all the rest of it. But like, I had a great night, but I thought it was a good night and stuff. And I would like to rewatch it with like obviously your everything fixed up and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that was actually there wasn't the export because I watched through the export before we took it to the premiere. Because when those lines dropped out, I was like, wait a minute, that's not right because that was there. And even after the premiere, I went back and double clicked on the file and went to those bits, and I was like, oh yeah, no, the sound's there. So it was literally just a lag issue with the HDMI cable going into the projector because you're
Right.
trying to
Aye.
you're trying to stream 4K 5.1 mix over two cables, which see in retrospect I would probably just pay the money and hire a cinema screen next time and those issues wouldn't have been there. But because it was when the first drone shot came on, I was like, that looks very slaggy to me. But those are not, I mean, the film went to, just because of the lead time for platforms, it was delivered to the UK distributor like 2-3 months ago. So it's been finished in that capacity for months. But that was literally just a technical issue thanks to the cables on the projector.
Yeah, no, like HDMI issues are the fucking worst. It's as simple as like trying to fucking get your PS5 to work on it. It's like I've had those issues in the past, so nah, I totally get it, mate. It was no, but like other than that, mate, the film was good, and I thought the final fight with you and David was pretty cool as well. But I mean, even but actually, do you know what impressed me the most was actually your first like kind of full on fight with David in the warehouse when you come find out that one of your men have died, and he he's both just fucking brought out. But and what I love about your character is that you admitted that you got your fucking arse handed to you at one point as well. And I think that that's like something that you have to kind of realize what develops a character in some aspect. You know what I mean? Like a lot of the time, like it's like the same with Bruce Willis and like Die Hard and all the rest of it. Like they're just very realistic of what they are. And Indiana Jones, like that was the thing. Like the first three were absolute masterpieces, and then like the fourth one, Spielberg for some reason went off a wee bit in his character development. I don't know if it's maybe because he was experienced enough, but in these ones he was always struggling. He was always like trying his best, and he was hanging onto his rope. He was fucking getting dragged about. He was getting his arse handed to him, but he still found a way to like win the fight. While in the fourth one, it was like he was beating everyone's ass and stuff, and it was like it's not quite what he was. Like it kind of defeats the purpose of what his character once was. Do you know what I mean? Like while
Yeah,
it was the same with like what you were doing in that.
I think there's sort of like not necessarily the underdog, aspect of it, but if you look at, stuff like Bruce Willis in Die Hard or Mel Gibson in Lethal Weapon or, Van Damme and stuff like Bloodsport and Kickboxer, Indiana Jones, they all get their arses kicked pretty regularly because I think the sort of underdog thing or the audience seeing the hero struggle is what makes them a bit more relatable. Steven Seagal came along with that very specific brand of, he would just leather everyone and that was it. And that worked for a while because it was unique and something that people hadn't seen before. But, even Bruce Lee, when he was fighting Chuck Norris, that was a one-on-one battle where, they were pretty equally matched. And I think that there's something to be said for characters being put through their paces because it heightens the stakes and makes people a bit more invested in them.
Yeah.
And I quite like doing that thing whereby I think a couple of the James Bond movies did it. You've also got Van Damme, I suppose, was responsible for kind of refining it, where you have a sort of teaser fight where the main good guy will get his arse kicked by either the main bad guy or the sort of henchman, and something will split them up, or the scene will come to a conclusion. But in the audience's mind, you're thinking, A, he's going to have to fight him again, and B, that's going to make it a lot more intense because you're like, shit, he's going to have his work cut out for him. I mean, in Double Impact, it happens. And then I think you've got a couple little bits in Universal Soldier where you just know that the end fight's going to be really good. Yeah. Even happens in Expendables with Dolph Lundgren and Jet Li having that little tussle at the start. So that kind of was what I was doing with the fight with Dave in the middle, because you then go, when he's like, let's finish this, you're like, oh, okay, this is going to be a tough one for the hero to kind of to overcome.
Yeah, and again, it was a very fair fight by the end of it, and like I thought, I liked that you were taking advantage of your surroundings and all the rest of it as well, and I was I think you do well on the choreograph side of things, while there was maybe times that I regretted that we maybe didn't do enough for Jacob Tyler, but the whole point in Jacob Tyler was to just try and keep it realistic as possible, because like there's a without, I mean, it doesn't really matter, but there's a point in Jacob Tyler that he at the start of the film, you could tell that he's a bully victim, so he gets his arse handed to him by a couple of bullies, and then later on in the film, like throughout the film, he starts beating the absolute crap out of people and beating the crap out of like these clowns and stuff, and then at one point he gets lured into a trap, and then he gets his absolute arse handed to him by a couple of like clowns and stuff, and then he runs away from the situation, and then there's like a flashback to when he kind of gets his arse handed to him at the start of the film, and you're saying to yourself, says, I feel like I've just went back to square one again, and that's what kind of developed him again to just try again, because I thought that was very important, because like it kind of puts your character back in his place, if you know what I mean, because
yeah. You have to kind of, I think, have those moments of, not knowing if the character's going to make it, or, it can't just be a sort of linear, suddenly gets more violent and, the hero's just taking everyone out. I think that you've got to have a sort of up-down in terms of those stakes and whatnot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, exactly. It's like, I did like that. Like there is a lot of kind of realistic action films. I mean, again, you could look at the Walking on the Tombstones again. Like there wasn't actually a lot of like kind of big action sequences. There was just a lot of like scraps happening. Well, that's the same like what's happening in here. Do you know what I mean? So, but like the guys actually get like struggling to fight with this guy who's handling a knife. So what's he trying to do to get around this by like avoiding death? Do you know what I mean? So it's kind of it's that, I think that's what makes it more impactful. Do you know what I mean? So like, and I think like the best action films are like Speed, for example, because it's like, well, it's very intense from throughout, because if it goes under 60 miles per hour, it blows up. So it's stuff like that. You just kind of think, well, yeah, like what is it that's keeping them thinking, oh my God, no, is he actually going to die here, or is something going to happen? So it's true, because it can happen. Like it's like I've And if you watch a lot of like kind of British films as well, that how brutal they are. Like, have you ever seen The Governors?
Have I ever seen?
The Governors.
No.
No, see that's like there's a brutal scene in that film. Again, like it took a wee, tiny bit of inspiration that he's just like he's in like a London neighborhood and all the rest of it, and like there was like this girl who was like stupid like kind of gossip was happening, so she out of his power because he's in a gang, he fucking gets this girl and cuts her ear like in front of everyone,
Right.
just to like kind of establish power and stuff. But it's like that's what impacts people. That's what actually gets people like that. Well, like, oh my god, that's quite unsettling. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know that yourself. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'll need to check that one out, actually. Yeah, I mean, there's, I think that different films, I guess, call for different things. I mean, the crime thriller that we are working on at the moment is much more realistic in terms of the violence, and I suppose it's sort of, it's a sort of startling violence where you're kind of wincing a bit. You're like, oh, just due to the brutality. I mean, Lock and Load's not really like that. It's obviously, you know, got some sort of pretty unrealistic martial arts sequences in it and whatnot. I mean, one thing I do always try and do is give you know, a good payoff in terms of the villain deaths. I think that that's an important thing to do. You know, even if you are going realistic, if you look at the, I don't know, like see the sauna scene in Eastern Promises, for example, yeah, it's realistic, but you still get that payoff of you know, the bad guys getting pretty brutal deaths. So there's certain elements that you can take into, I suppose, any film you make. But yeah, tone dictates how the fights and the action's going to be to a degree. And with something like Lock and Load, it's sort of a little bit stupid and over the top. And then the thing that we're working on just now, we had to kind of be a lot more realistic with it.
No, yeah. I think was Nico working on that one that you're talking about? Yeah. No, like I like the idea of what they were talking about for it. So like again, it's another interesting one that I would like to see when it comes out. So as you were saying, if it's taking itself more serious compared to something like Lock and Load, then I'd like to see what you have up your sleeve, because you have, like, you know, you've done well with your fight sequences and that, like you seem to have that to a T. So it'll be interesting to see what that's like. But like we were just saying there about like kind of realistic things and what makes things very simple. So I guess it's actually gonna like lead into, we're gonna talk about Baby in the Basket now, because like a lot of horror films, like we were talking about earlier, how like what makes a horror film more scarier now, and like and how what makes it more spookier, what like and all the rest of it. Like we were saying, like Don't Look Now is just such an unsettling ending. So was I mean, we could go on all night, but again, like Michael Myers, he's a slasher killer, very intimidating presence. He's 6 foot whatever, and he's like and the thing is, it's like he doesn't walk fast, he doesn't do anything. The most scariest part about it is the fact that like the guy will just come up out on you at any moment, at any time, and it feels like you can't kill the guy. While a film that I thought was really really good was It Follows. Have you ever seen It Follows?
Oh yeah, I have,
yeah. And it's such a simple concept again, because it's literally just like, as soon as you encounter this thing, it's going to kill you. Like, but it's going to follow you for the rest of your life until you do something about it. And I thought that was yeah, and that fucks with you. You know what I mean? Like there was a question, that was like, you have a choice to take £50 million, but a snail is going to follow you for the rest of your life, and if it touches you, you die. So do you take this? Even like like you can still see it, you can still tell that it's there and all the rest of it, but like, it's going to be following you for the rest of your life to try and kill you.
Right. No, I wouldn't take 50 million. I don't think.
Like, because you're living in fear all the time, aren't you?
Yeah.
So, it's literally It Follows, if you think about it.
Yeah.
Like that concept, like it's so scary. Like I find one of the best, like kind of out of the puff jump scares was in that film, when the big because like obviously it changes its shape and sizes and stuff. But remember the bit when he's just in the doorway, and then all of a sudden just this big massive like tall guy comes out of the doorway, into the room. Oh, that was absolutely terrifying. I couldn't believe it.
It is a good film. I think every so often you get a concept that you're like, oh, that's really clever, and it's the sort of number of things you can do with it and the different directions you can take it. I mean, I suppose to a slightly lesser degree, Don't Breathe was an interesting
I was actually just
concept.
thinking that, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And then it was ruined by a sequel. I thought the sequel just was not necessary at all.
Do you know, I haven't actually seen that yet, but I didn't hear such great things about it. But
very average, like there was some good stuff in it, like great action from his part, but because the thing is, he turns into more of a kind of hero in it, and then but even at the end of the film, he's more like, you have to. I'm not a good person and all the rest of it. Like I need to remind you of what I've actually done.
A little bit like so from the Saw movie, and you kind of go, wait, the audience actually could root for this guy, but sometimes you spoil it by doing that. I mean, Terminator was one of the films where they actually took from being a bad guy to a good guy, which was an interesting. I think you lost connection a wee bit.
Yeah, what's that? Sorry.
I think you lost connection a wee bit there.
I think
that.
I was just saying there that like in the ending of the first Don't Breathe, you could see that he was there was going to be an idea of maybe he's alive still. Is he going to go after this girl that has just took all of his stuff? You know what I mean? Like, but I didn't go that route at all.
Right.
But then she's living in fear, thinking that, what if this guy is going to just come after me now? Like, somehow.
Yeah.
But, yeah, like, but, yeah, no, like, as I said, when it comes to those kind of films and all the rest of it, I think they're the best films. But, as I'm saying, we've talked a lot about it earlier. Is this what we can promise when it comes to Baby in the Basket?
I think probably in terms of that, it's, tone-wise, it's kind of a bit of a gothic melodrama in a way. We're kind of, the whole kind of idea behind, I suppose, the first, 60 pages of the script is to try and build up the suspense and the sort of, the inclination that something's going to go on or something's not quite right. And I think that the part of the hook is that the characters, are having their own visions, or they're having their own, views of what this baby is, and other people in the story aren't. And it's, partly it's the audience kind of having to decide what's real and what's not, and what's in the sort of character's head. But I think an important thing will be to kind of build up the atmosphere. We'll probably try and take from films like, the 1963 film The Haunting. And then there's another one which I've forgotten the name of. I can't remember. What's that film called? It's basically set in a haunted house. It's got it's got the woman from Black Narcissus in it, which was another source of inspiration. I can't remember the film called.
When was it? When was the time frame?
It's got to be 60s. It's 61 or 60.
Right.
It's a British film. I can't think what it's called, but yeah, there's a few where it's kind of crafted that atmosphere. Those sort of films from the 60s, stuff like Black Narcissus and The Haunting, where we're hoping to kind of have that as the basis of the scare in the film, as opposed to just creating that sort of atmosphere and that dread. I mean, there are some payoffs in it, because I think, again, as I say, for modern audiences, you kind of have to have that. But
yeah, so have you seen the others?
Yes, yeah, that's
something
again,
like that,
yeah. Sort of one of those films that manages to do that really well. So yeah, I guess it's just about taking whatever's on the page and putting that onto the screen, and going, oh yeah, that really works. That gels quite well, and we're creating the right atmosphere. I mean, I think cinematically, in terms of the way we're going to shoot it, we're going to go with quite long, kind of lingering shots. The crime thriller we're working on just now is all very handheld, and kind of you're kind of in there with them to a degree. It's sort of like that hyper realism, but with this, we kind of wanted to go back to, as much as possible we can on the budget days of kind of Touch of Evil, where you're having nice long shots that linger for a while, as opposed to just doing the sort of mid-shot close-up type thing. You're having nice wides that are blocked really interestingly, almost borderline like a theatre show or something like that. So I hope that's going to help to elevate that sense of suspense as well.
I like that. No, I like the idea of that then, because I was just saying, like, you kind of struck me on theatre there, because, like, as you were saying, like, no, I was saying earlier about Woman in Black, like, there's a theatre play for it as well. And again, like, you're giving me a lot of idea there, because there's, again, like, it's set in like a big mansion as well, and there's some in that there's a lot of scenes in that film that again just kind of unsettles me and all the rest of it. And it's not what's happening in front of you, it's also what's happening around you as well. So, like, that'll be interesting to take on. Just like a quick question, but, like, do you think it's harder to direct something that's not what you wrote, or do you think that it's still quite easily adaptable?
I think, Tom and I have got quite kind of aligned visions in terms of, what we want from a film. It's always really easy to kind of formulate the idea with them, because our thinking is always in the same direction, and our taste in cinema is quite similar as well, which helps. I mean, the second feature that I did, When Darkness Falls, was something that Tom wrote, and I was looking at it and I'm thinking, this is good. It's sort of what I expected it to be. And then occasionally I would kind of go to him, Tom, what's meant to be the sort of idea behind this scene, or what, how is this character behaving in this scene? What's your interpretation of it? So I would ask him a few questions, and that kind of equipped me to, I suppose, direct it better based on vision, because it's very easy, even with good writing, to sort of misinterpret. I think if you hear from that, it gives you a better chance to bring their vision to life. But I would say in the case of When Darkness Falls, it was interesting directing someone else's script, because typically I've kind of got my own writing style, whether you know it or not. No matter what genre you write in, you always use certain tropes, whether that's in your subconscious or whether you're unaware. And it was nice to direct someone else's script with dialogue that I probably wouldn't have written in that way. So it felt quite fresh, and it opens your eyes to different ways of doing things. I think Baby in the Mask is going to be even more challenging because of the structure of the story and the ambiguity in it. But as long as I can sort of bring that to the screen and do the script justice, that's the main goal, I guess.
Yeah, awesome. No, I think you gave me the idea of, like, when Kubrick and King clashed with The Shining, because I mind that famous interview that King was talking about that came a wee bit later on in life, was that Kubrick had this idea that it was a very, like, kind of cold atmosphere, very, like, frozen over ending to it, while in Stephen King's book it's actually like, I have the idea that Jack is in the hotel and he's burning alive with the hotel itself. And I was like, right. Shit, like, this is totally different then. And then and he was talking about, it was so cool, because, like, he was talking about, he was pure, like, says, like, Kubrick, like, the way I'm looking at this here is that he's going to hell, like, this hotel and its presence with it is burning and it's going to hell with him. And Kubrick actually says to him, I don't believe in hell. Right. It's just like, he's literally just kind of letting this kind of freeze over as, like, an ending. And I mean, again, like, I thought the film was absolutely superb. So, like, it doesn't really matter. It would be interesting to see what, like, that other thing was. There was like a mini series of The Shining that didn't do too well, but it would have been interesting to see what that would have been like, in his, like, perspective, if it worked out. But that's kind of the idea of what I was getting from yourself. Like, I totally get that. Like, with my own writing, you know, you understand your own writing and you understand how to film it. But when you take something else, you're like, well, this is how I would do it. Like, this is like how I'm reading this is how I would put it to screen. Because if there was one film that I would love to adapt from a book, is called The Catcher in the Rye. But
Okay.
yeah, but I think the reason, but there's a problem there. Well, I keep forgetting his name, but he bought the rights to. There's a possibility that the movie's never going to get made. So it's like, well, maybe that's for a reason. Because like, if we're reading this book, he'll never think that. I don't think this is adaptable, because like, you'll never be able to top what my book is, and I can get that. I think the closest person that's ever going to get to it is probably Scorsese. But other than that, I just don't, because I don't. Maybe a Spielberg, but I feel like there's only so many people that could actually adapt that story. Like, I feel like I could give it a good go, but I could maybe fail at it as well.
I think sort of taking literature onto the screen, there's certain nuances that you get in literature that just sort of, I suppose, can't be replicated on screen. But I suppose one of the sort of more regular complaints about any books that have been made into films, you know, especially with the purists, are that a lot of stuff gets cut out. And, you know, that's just logically, unless you're going to split it into two films, you know, the Harry Potter films spring to mind, you're going to have to take some stuff out there. And even stuff like, you know, Hollywood's casting choices, for example. I know a lot of Jack Reacher purists weren't pleased when Tom Cruise, who's about 3'5", was cast as the titular 6'5" hero. And I get that. I think you kind of have to, you know, I think you have to kind of push your perceptions of stuff aside. I mean, I actually, even from the perspective of remakes, I saw Brick Mansions before I saw the original, which I can't remember what it's called, but I kind of took Brick Mansions at face value and thought that's a pretty good film.
Yeah.
But anyone that saw the original went, oh no, the original is where it's at. So, you know, I think that that's the risk you run when you adapt something for the screen, and even going from sort of like biographies of, you know, true stories, whether it's like Bohemian Rhapsody, or, you know, whether it's a film like J. Edgar or Oppenheimer or something like that. There's always kind of you know, people that will contest history if you're not adapting something that's an original story. But
Yeah.
you know, movies are a totally different beast from printed word. So
Yeah.
when it comes to even stuff like the Da Vinci Code, there's got to be stuff that's left out, because in the movie realm, you know, you've got 2.5, 3 hours max.
No, yeah, again, yeah, like those films weren't very well perceived because of the book situation, were they? So again, it's very difficult to make those kind of films now. It was the same like the Maze Runners and stuff. Like they were perceived well. Like that's Lad's favorite films, but like again, like they'll talk about like how there's still stuff missed out on. And the interesting thing you were talking about Harry Potter was that there was actually a few things that were different to the book, but yet J.K. Rowling still accepted it. She still liked it in the first place. Do you know what I mean? So whether she forgot her own writing or whatever, but like it's still like there's changes like for the better, I think. But like you were saying, and I was thinking that there, like you were saying, like with the Oppenheimer stuff, I don't know if I could make that kind of film, because I don't want to have the responsibility of taking on such a, you know what I mean, like an important past and like a thing that could turn into such a controversial thing. That's why like I prefer original ideas. But yeah.
And I think with original ideas, you've not kind of got that pressure. You know, you write something that's your vision start to finish and you take it to screen. But I think, yeah, you're right. You know, if you were ever doing a biography or something that was even based on a true story, I think there's the extra pressure there to get that right. Yeah. And I can't even begin to imagine the research that had to go into something like Oppenheimer, especially because it was 3 hours long and, you know, covered so much of his life and so many historic events in there and so many different characters. I mean, the film was just loaded with different characters, famous faces all over the shop, and you're going, you would have to really read even I can't remember what the president was called. Oh geez, Gary Oldman played him. It was the president at the time of the United States. But you know, even that one scene, you're thinking that was so well crafted. Christopher Nolan and whoever wrote this must have had to do an insane amount of research just into that one scene alone. So it is quite a big task to take on, and I suppose that's why a lot of films like that take 3-4 years, sometimes even more in development. Where as if you write an original story, you can kind of write it and be ready to shoot it in 6 months.
We struggle ourselves to just kind of have both ways with like because we work hard at our side of like the directorial side of our own films, but you still kind of expect like your actors to put some kind of like pick your head and say like what is it you actually want from me and this kind of thing, and like what an assistant can do and all the rest of it. It's while Christopher Nolan has a 3-hour film to do with a biography of Oppenheimer, and he has to know every single character what they're doing. The actor has to know exactly what they're doing, and they have to get it right. You know what I mean? Like, and even like Einstein, one of the most famous people on the planet, is there in that film. And you're just thinking, well, again, if I fuck this up, I could get an absolute slate in here. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah. I know, and it's one of those things that it's not just the writer, the director that needs to know the story inside out. I mean, I imagine that these people or the actors have studied hours of footage, or obviously the older the film is, less people alive actually remember these people. So I suppose you can get away with a little bit more creative freedom or intent. But if you look at something like the Rocket Man, the Elton John biopic, there's reams and reams of footage of him that can be studied and the mannerisms perfected. So I can't even begin to imagine the research and the time spent that goes in for it's not just a case of learning the lines and kind of crafting your own character. It's actually becoming someone else.
No, it's that's why I think Bohemian Rhapsody got a wee bit of stick as well, because it was like apparently the whole the point when they said he told them about his illness and all the rest of it. Apparently didn't even tell them before Live Aid. Apparently told them much later than that. So it's just, but again, it's like that's where things are just a bit of a problem, because they've got a story to make and they've got tickets to sell. Do you know what I mean? So and even though it's not really reasonable, do you know what I mean?
I know. I mean, that's the thing. You kind of take liberties with rewriting history a little bit. So, I mean, I guess it depends how well people know things. I mean, even on sort of Dahmer, I'm pretty sure, I cannot remember what her name was in the series, but the black lady that was his neighbour, apparently she lived like 2 or 3 blocks down in reality and didn't really know who Dahmer was. Yeah, and I think she still shopped him because of something. I think she'd seen him walking about the street with this intoxicated young guy that he then went on to murder. So that part was true, but I don't like her and the neighbour weren't the same person or anything like that. So, and obviously that was such a huge part of the story, because you do that thing where you're sitting and you sort of like you're on Wikipedia when you're watching one of these things and you're like, right, okay. Because a lot, anything you watch something like that, even with like the Zodiac Killer movie, you're like, I wonder if that's what actually happened. But I thought that was probably quite a big liberty to take, because it did obviously massively benefit the story, and it's way more exciting than what the reality was. But you are kind of thinking, right, that's a bit of a cheat, you know what I mean?
And sometimes they just do it for like a nice perspective. Do you know what I mean? Even though the family could be quite annoyed by that, but it's but that's just the way that they kind of see it and hope that it's accepted. But as you were saying, like, that's like Dahmer is actually a good point of me. Like, I don't know about you, but like, I'm not the biggest TV show fan. Like, I love my still game. I love my Only Fools and Horses. I love my sitcom, like, cause for pure comedy aspect. But with there's not a lot of TV shows that I like, is because it's one camera angle. It's just like it's gossip. It's just drama. It's like I don't like. While Luther, in my opinion, is a fucking masterpiece of a show, Broadchurch is a masterpiece of a show, because I feel like most of these, like the ones like Dahmer again, is like shot from like a filmmaker's perspective, while I feel like a lot of TV shows miss out on that, like, and that's why I don't watch them too much. But like the likes of Mindhunter and stuff, they don't miss out on that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think for me, you know, Only Fools and Horses, it's such an easy thing to stick on while you're eating your lunch for
Yeah,
half an hour, and they never get
yeah,
old. And you don't have to watch, if you've seen them all before, you don't have to watch
yeah.
them in order. For me, you know, stuff like I've never got around to Breaking Bad or Game of Thrones because I just do not have the time to
Same.
get invested in a, you know, seven season show that's, you know, the episodes are an
Yeah,
hour long. I can't do the binge watch thing because I genuinely don't have time. So sort of mini series like The Watcher and Dahmer are ideal for me because you kind of get the story start to finish. I suppose that's one thing that you're a bit of a disadvantage in filmmaking wise because if you get something like Dahmer, they explored the length and breadth of his character because they had what I guess maybe what 8 or 10 hours to do
yeah,
so over the course of the series. If you've got an hour and a half film, you literally have to develop that character and take them through their journey in that much shorter period of time. So I think that's probably where the binge watching came from because the general length of seasons on TV shows, you've got much more scope to develop the character, and it's a bit more difficult to replicate that in a film.
I
I
totally agree.
think.
I actually like. I think you've hit it quite well there, mate. Because to be honest with you, like I've always said the same with like Breaking Bad. Again, I've not got around to. I think eventually I will, but I get like I'm not the biggest fan of like playing catch up with like so many seasons, like 10 seasons. Like I'm pretty sure there's like something ridiculous. Like there's like 20 odd seasons of like the X Files. I've heard so many good things about the X Files, but I've never really thought like because I mind I tried to watch the first episode of the first season, and it's very outdated like technologies in it, like CGI and stuff, and I'm like, oh, I already know that this is going to be a drag, right? Because like I didn't appreciate it for what it was back then. Like for me, like when I watched the reboot of Doctor Who, for example, from Christopher Eccleston, I watched that when it came out, so like that's why I kind of followed up on that. I kind of fell away from it a wee
Yeah.
bit, but again, like that's why I still appreciate what it was back then. Like now, do you know what I mean? Like even if it is outdated, but like as you were saying, like and this is why I prefer movies because you have a 2 hour period most of the time as your average film to tell a story from start to end. And I think that that's more pure in my opinion. While on TV shows,
Yeah.
there's a lot of these wait till next week and find out what happens. And I think that just like I don't mind the cliffhanger in a movie because you're just buzzing for the next like big next story. But with this, I just think that's bullshit. To be honest with you. You know what I mean? Like
I think cinema, film certainly as a format, I prefer to TV, and I think I always will. And it's probably not as much these days, not with sort of like direct to video and you know VOD movies and stuff like that. But I think to me, cinema always kind of hold in higher regard. But then these days, they spend much more on some TV shows than they do. I mean, some TV shows per episode have got a budget 3 or 4 times bigger than some films. It's crazy the lengths that they've went to on TV shows. I think for me, you know. I never kind of succumbed to the hype of Breaking Bad or you know Game of Thrones, despite what people tell me, because sometimes I think things are overhyped, and there's a
yeah,
few classic films that I sort of haven't got around to watching, and sometimes I've no sort of intention or inclination of watching them because a few times in the past, you know, Taxi Driver you watch and you're like, that is a classic. But then there's other films that I've watched and I'm like, I don't get this.
yeah.
I don't get why people are raving about this. And some things are kind of an era. I mean, I think some things hold up. So, you know, you look at something like Psycho, to me, that totally holds
So
up.
good. Why
But
have we
then,
not talked about that once with all this fucking horror we've been talking about? Honestly, like again, one of my favorite films of all time.
yeah,
Like ah,
and the atmosphere, you know, you could cut through it with a knife and there's no CGI, there's barely any blood, there's no creature, it's just pure nasty human intention, which is, I suppose, why I found Dahmer so fascinating as well, because it's kind of a bit more true to life, and it's the reality of these things is that they could and did happen that make them so horrifying
yeah,
versus the supernatural or CGI or whatever. But I mean, there's been a few films that I've watched where I'm kind of like, oh, I suppose at the time that must have been really, you know, controversial. I mean, I watched, maybe it's because it could have been just because the artwork was misleading, but I watched Apocalypse Now and kind of thought,
hard to get
is
into.
that it?
It's really hard to get into, mate.
Yeah,
I like the film. I think it's really good, but again, it's a film that I would say, okay, brilliant, but I don't think I could watch it again. Like,
No.
it's a really good film, obviously, but it's just that I totally agree with you. Like, I think it's very hard. While Psycho is still a film that you can shove on and say, like,
You
introduce to
appreciate
someone, like
it.
introduce to someone and say, and they'll still feel the same effects that you did when you first watched it.
Yeah.
Like that, see that stairway scene, like the
Yeah.
big massive wide
Yeah.
angle, like wide shot, looking down, and then just like you see that this person's literally just walking out of this room, but with the timing of the music and her walking out, or him obviously walking out and stabbing this guy, I was like, it just catches you so off guard, and you're like, well, what the fuck? It was just an absolute masterpiece. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. And I think it's one of those films that you can kind of confidently say to somebody, "Oh, this is a classic. You are going to like
mm-hmm.
this." I mean, my kind of issue with Apocalypse Now was you look at the artwork and you've got Marlon Brando's face and he's build up the top. And I remember getting sort of 2 hours into it and thinking, "I know this is a long film, but where the fuck is Marlon Brando?"
Yeah.
And then he sort of pops up for 5 minutes at the end and slurs his way through a speech, almost completely cloaked in darkness. And obviously, I understand, the production things and what was going on in his life at the time, but it was almost a bit of a missell because I expected it to be this kind of unraveling of this war hero who was, nuts in his descent into madness. And actually, the film itself, I was like, that's kind of nothing like I expected it to be, based because you do build up a perception of what a film's going to be like. You look at something like Lock and Load, you've got guys on the cover with guns, and that's exactly what you get. But you look at something like that iconic artwork for Apocalypse Now, you mold this idea of what you think the film's going to be like in your head, and it's actually nothing like that.
Yeah.
So I think that was an example where I was like, I kind of don't get the hype for this one.
Yeah, I've done this thing now. It might help, but I don't know. You might already do it, but like now, what I do is like I'm trying to catch up a lot of classics. Like my bucket list like goes higher and higher every day. But the what I do now is I'll watch a part of the older films bit by bit a day. So like I'll watch the first 20 minutes and then I'll get back to it. Right, so concentrate for these 20 minutes, and obviously if you're not feeling intrigued just yet, know where you've left it. Take all that information, then come back to it. Then I'll do another 20 minutes. And then there's some films that you just end up watching the whole way through because it is that good of a film. Like Citizen Kane for me, I thought I would have done that. Like I thought, right, okay, this is going to be a hard watch, but I started and couldn't stop. I was like, because I gave it enough time to finally gel, and then I was like, oh my god, right, this film is a masterpiece, like for what it was at its time. And the same with again, Orson Welles made a film called The Third Man. Again, one of my.
I was literally just about to mention that. So I was the opposite with The Third Man. I watched that recently, and I watched it in chunks. And I actually thought, based on my sort of preferences and the sort of films that I like, I expected to stick that on and be so engrossed. And the same also happened with Double Indemnity. And I think the same happened with Vertigo as well.
Yeah.
I think it was probably about the 5th time on both Double Indemnity and Vertigo where I actually went, oh no, this is actually quite a good film, and it pulled me in.
Mm-hmm.
Some films pull you in instantly, and sometimes I think it's the mood that you're in. Django Unchained, I sat down to watch that, and I was like, this is a long film. And then I was so engrossed in it that I again wasn't intending to watch it start to finish. But I think that's, in the sort of streaming sense, if modern films, I mean, like, see if you know something's a classic like The Third Man, you go, right, I'm going to watch this start to finish, even if I do it in 20-minute chunks. But I think, if you blind watch something these days on streaming and you're not vibing with it in the first 10 minutes, I've seen myself, and, I would hate for somebody to do this with my film, but I've seen myself so many times go, I'm not vibing with this.
Yeah.
Even, I'm getting to the stage where now, if I don't like the tone or the sort of setup of the first scene, I'm like, that's getting switched off. And I think that because there's the streaming audience where the problem is they are going to switch off, they don't
No, aye.
come along with streaming. But
It's why I've glad I've took on that kind of thing now, because like a lot of them have made my favourite list now. Like 12 Angry Men is like I think that's top 3 for me. Like 12
That is a great film, yeah.
That's actually a film I weirdly want to put into a stage play. Like if I ever wanted a stage play, it would be 12 Angry Men. And I was saying to people if you are up for maybe doing this, because I can sort it out, get the rights, find out if I can definitely do it, and then we'll do it at East Kilbride Village Theatre, and then we'll try and sell some tickets for it. Do you know what I mean? So I think that's still in the mix of things. So hopefully we can do that. But for now,
so, going back to the Third Man, did you do that in a winner?
I done that in a winner. Yeah, I was. So I done that again though. Like as you said, it began, and I was like, okay, maybe not the film that I maybe thought it was going to be, but then the final act, you have to admit, was just tremendous. Like I couldn't believe how good it was. Like the running, like the chase sequence and all the rest of it. It was so cool. Like the whole point of him like kind of going missing and not like showing face was. I loved it so much. Like I've got it in Blu-ray actually. It's not really a film that you really need in Blu-ray, but I've got it. It's so good. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's one of those things where sometimes you sort of got the audacity to go, oh, this is not what I expected, and it's like, oh, so just because it's not what you expected, it's automatically shit.
Yeah.
There was also watched, which I was actually pretty engrossed by, was see Wages of Fear. So it was remade as The Sorcerer? You know that one where they're trying to transport the explosives?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was. I'm going to show my lack of knowledge here. I think it was the guy that directed The Exorcist that made the remake. So there was the American remake Sorcerer with I think it was what's the guy's name, Roy Schneider, and then the original was is it English language? I don't think it is. Anyway, that was one of those films where, my mate Tom's like, oh, this is a classic, and that kept me engrossed. I guess it's about what you think. Sometimes I think it's actually better to go into a film with no expectations. I mean, North by Northwest was not really the kind of thing that Alfred Hitchcock was. Psycho, it's absolutely nothing like that. But I went into North by Northwest knowing nothing about it and found it really, really gripping. Just a really gripping spy story. And it was a different kind of suspense, but it was one of those films that just kind of grabbed me. Whereas I went into Vertigo and I was like, I thought this was going to be like a guy that was, see, Vertigo's not fear of heights.
Yeah.
That's not what it is. Common misconception. But I thought it was going to be almost like a bit of a kind of obscure thriller where this guy was trying to overcome this vertigo. Yeah. And it kind of wasn't. And I think it took me about 4 or 5 times to really appreciate what it was.
Yeah. No, I would I totally agree with that. I love films like that though, that you finally that you watch maybe more than once to kind of appreciate. I think that's what happened with me with Tenet, because see, the first time I watched it, I was like, my favourite filmmaker just made a fucking bad movie, and I was watching this and I'm like, then I watched it the second time. I'm like, no, I can't accept that no one's actually made something like this. So I watched it again and I'm like, okay. And then I'm like looking at everyone else's opinions on it and stuff, and then I was like, okay, I didn't understand that part, so I'm gonna watch it again. and then I'm like, okay, you done a fair effort. And then I watched that 4th time because it was on one day, and I'm like, do you know what? I should have gave this movie more credit than I thought. I actually kind of like this film now. But the main example for me was Blade Runner. Like I think I watched that so many times, and like I think the first few times I was like, okay, it was a good film, but I was quite confused by it. But then again, like when I watched the 3rd, 4th, 5th time, I was like, oh my god, this is amazing, this film, absolutely amazing.
I think sometimes films, and I was probably like this the same with Vertigo as you were with Tenet. I think there's some films that just draw you back, whether that's not necessarily the complexity of the plot, or sometimes it's your sort of indifference towards them. So like the crime thriller that we're working on just now, it's sort of half based off of You Were Never Really Here. And that's a film that's quite short. It's quite sort of not a great deal happens in it, but it's so poignant, and I keep kind of returning to it and finding something new to like about it every time. But the first time I remember thinking, I don't really know how I feel about that
Yeah.
film. It was just sort of there, if that makes sense. And then something made me kind of want to return to it. The film that I was thinking of earlier on, by the way, was The Innocents.
Ah, The
That's what it's
Innocents.
called.
Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah, yeah. I don't remember a good deal of that film actually, but like that it was alright. It was
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about now actually. Um, but like you were saying there, like it's like something that gravitates you back towards it. It was yeah, like when Chris Nolan also said it was like more of a spy movie, and I was like, okay, like no, this is making more sense now because like I didn't actually, like I just don't know. There was just a lot that didn't make sense to me to start with. I didn't like the whole idea of like the backwards thing, what they were using that to the advantage and stuff, and then the like Blade Runner. I think it was like the score of the film, the visuals for how old the film actually was, and finding
Yeah.
out it was actually a toy set sometimes that they were using to like kind of use the visuals so well. And I was like, this is like there's just something grabbing me. Like I want to watch that again. And it could even be like a simple scene when at the start when Deckard is eating noodles and stuff, and like, do you know what I mean? Like just the culture that he's in, piss and rain, like everything about it just really did kind of make me think about it. And again, like stuff that I would maybe want to do in the future. But
Yeah.
there was something there that it was like something that you said there that I was kind of thinking about. It was so cool. Oh, it'll come back to me, but yeah. What the fuck?
I find myself even, it's unfortunate that you can kind of do this these days, and then also a good thing. But like, I guess when people watch things for the first time, their sort of interpretation of it was whatever they perceived it to be. But I find myself these days going, ending of blah blah blah, explain
Yeah,
like what was the ending to that film all about. And I think sometimes I get greater appreciation by going, oh, this was a metaphor for blah blah blah, and you're like, oh right,
yeah.
okay. So I mean, I watched a film called In Fabric, totally weird. Watched a film called Men, which is an A24 film,
Men,
totally weird.
the recent one.
Yeah, and you kind of half get the idea.
Aye,
You're like, I think I know what they're trying to say with this, and then you go on like, I mean, even I did it with Donnie Darko. You go online and you're like, oh, so
yeah,
that's what that's meant to be
yeah.
about.
And
The
again, a
one thing
film.
that I never,
It's like you were saying there, like see a film that had so much hype back in the day, and again, like something that you just don't understand and all the rest of it. Like, but yeah, sorry, continuing what you were saying there.
what one of my mates is a massive Kubrick fan, and he would give me he used to give me them all on DVD, and I'd go watch them and come back, and one of the ones that he gave me was Eyes Wide Shut, and I came back and I was like, what the hell was that about? And he's like, there's so many different interpretations. Even I found myself looking at The Shining, the photograph. That to me, I got to the end of that and I'm thinking, what was the significance of
Yeah,
that? And I still haven't been able to find a succinct, I guess that's where ambiguity in films makes them so interesting, because you think, so many different people have got so many different interpretations. Even Blade Runner, there's people saying, oh, but there was a clue in there that says that, whatever. I think that makes it really interesting. And I suppose the one thing I did learn making films is that you don't have to spoon feed the audience. Not everything has to be
yeah,
explained. I mean, people would occasionally turn around to me and say, in When Darkness Falls, for example, it's not really a MacGuffin or like a red herring or anything like that, but these two guys are traveling around the Highlands, robbing these rich people, but they're also not to find a point on it, date raping women because they're getting their kicks from doing that. And probably about two-thirds into it, the money that they've got stashed under the bed goes missing, and there's an agreement between one of the characters and another character. He's like, right, okay, I'll help you find your missing friend if you help me find my money, because I think she's taken it. So like, if we find her, we'll find the money. And someone commented on YouTube and said, they're like, what happened to the missing money? And I was like, it doesn't matter. I was like, the film is not, it was a plot device, but it doesn't actually matter what happened to the money. It's up to audience
it's a
interpretation.
good point, mate. like, again, my favourite film, Prisoners. Like, did Hugh Jackman survive the end of the film? Did they find him? We don't know. Like, did Jake Gyllenhaal have that?
Probably one of the greatest ambiguous endings
Yeah.
ever, and it's so traumatizing because it cuts to the credits. You're like, oh no. I mean, me being an optimist would like to believe that that it was immediately found after that, but it's that uncertainty that's so traumatizing at the end of that.
The thing was, like, you're like you said there. I think that what I would like to think about that ending is that Detective Loki, as good as a detective he is, I would like to think that he had the memory, the knowledge, and the skill to remember about the whistle, and how
Right.
and how, like, this, like, random whistle is, like, going off, and thinking, like, why is this, like, and I think that would be, even if he was to leave that crime scene, something should be itching his head for the rest of his life. So, like, he finally finds out, like, that it was, like, underneath that car, and he was inspecting in the first place. Do you know what I mean? So, like, when the first thing that he inspects in Alex's house is the car. Like, when he goes to the film, not to the house, and it was my husband's car, blah blah blah. But yeah, as you were saying, like, you don't need to spoon feed the audience. It's very true, mate.
Dennis, I can't pronounce his second name.
Yeah.
He's one of the ones. Yeah, he's one of the ones that, you know, he's a kind of to watch for a bit there.
He's too good.
He's a one to watch. Yeah, for a bit there, every film that he did that came out, I was like, I really like this tone and style wise. It's sort of right up my street. What did you think? I know this is obviously kind of open to interpretation, but what did you think of Nocturnal Animals?
Nocturnal Animals, very unsettling, to say the least. I remember that film very well. I actually collect all my cinema tickets. You can't really do that as much these days because it goes straight onto your phone, but I've got Nocturnal Animals. Very interesting because, like, the film is told by what Amy Adams is reading, isn't she? So, and, like, we don't know, but, like, the film itself, it's like, what was Jake Gyllenhaal trying to tell Amy? Do you know what I mean? Like, was like what he was reading, like, not what she was reading. It was like something. What I took from it was that they broke up in the film. So, like, he wrote down his, like, kind of feelings into how what was it that took him away from her relationship. But, like, I went so in depth there. I went so in depth there. But what I thought about it, I thought it was really good. But it was very, very unsettling for sure. Because, like, the villains in it were very annoying. Very, like, you know, these are the ones that you want to get tortured at the end of the film. And do you know what I mean?
Yeah. But it's so plausible as well because there was such a sense of realism there. It was almost, you know, in very basic terms, it was almost a little bit like The Wicker Man because you had this person who was trapped in this situation with these people that he really couldn't get out of. I mean, bit of a simplistic way of looking at it. I remember getting to the end of it and I said to my mate at the time who he was really well versed in cinema and, you know, read into things and, you know, cinematically and in terms of what he watched, he was a lot more intelligent than me and he had a lot more kind of variety in what he watched. But I was like, I kind of almost wished they'd have just done a simple revenge movie with Jake Gyllenhaal because every time it cut back to Amy Adams, I was like, I'm bored with these parts. Because I was so invested in Jake's story and the revenge and everything like that, what was going to happen. Every time it cut back to Amy Adams, I was like, and he's like, but you've missed the entire point of the film. And I was like, I know what the film's trying to do, but I think the fact that was actually a book that she was reading, but then sort of you were getting to see what was happening, and I think that took away part of the realism in a way, because it was almost like, oh, well, this didn't actually happen, it's just in this book within the film. So for me, you know, I almost wanted to see what a standalone of that scenario would have been like. I know that defeats the entire purpose of the film, but the sort of the thriller fan in me kind of wanted to You know what I mean?
I think
But
I think no, like I get that completely, mate. Because the thing is, like we like Blade Runner for me, for example, I thought there was going to be much more action in it because what I seen from stills and what I seen from like a trailer or whatever, and you find Deckard with his famous gun is going to use more and all the rest of it. But it's actually a very like kind of it's not really dramatic action scenes are in it, but and he's not actually a good fighter in it either. Do you know what I mean? He's actually quite like he's just a detective at the end of the day. But with Nocturnal Animals, the way that I looked at it was that so he the way that he saw it was that the the death of his wife and kid in the book was the death of their marriage, and and what was in the middle of that was the villains are what destroyed the marriage in the first place. Because if you look at outside of that film, you could see that there was problems with their relationship and why the mum didn't really like him as a guy and all the rest of it. So I
yeah,
think that was the villain of the story, and how I looked at it was that Jake Gyllenhaal couldn't win because it was a parent's opinion of like why that marriage was ruined in the first place. And I think that
yeah,
so in the book he's kind of looking at it like like I'm just so helpless. Like I just feel like I'm such a scaredy cat. I'm such a wimp and all the rest of it. And this is why like he struggles to kill this guy at the end of the film because it's like he's trying to
right.
bury it. Do you know what I mean? He's trying to bury like that situation, and that's why he doesn't turn up in the last day, or does he? We don't know that because like in the ending,
Yeah. I
it's like
I did get that from it, and I guess it's is it meant to be regret on Amy Adams' part? Is she because that's what I got from it was that once she sort of understood the complexity or the gravitas of the situation, that's what that was her emotion was regret. I don't, have you ever seen a film called Caliber?
fucking hell. Nah, Nathan, you've literally read my mind, mate. Like, actually, I was literally wanting to talk to you about that as well, but we've obviously been talking all this time, and I hope I'm not holding you back or anything. But as I said, like Caliber, I watched it this year, and I fucking love the film. I was going to see if you were thinking that yourself. Would you think?
Yeah, I think I've seen it twice or three times now. I keep kind of telling people to watch it. It's one of those real hidden gems that I just happened to put on Netflix and was totally engrossed. For me, that's, you know, again, that's probably scarier or more horrifying than anything. You know, it kind of goes back to Wicker Man or Nocturnal Animals. You get what you kind of do is put yourself in that situation and think, holy shit, they're in so much
Mm.
trouble. And it's that sort of helpless. They can't really kind of get out of that situation. I think that that's what makes it so
Yeah,
horrifying is that it's so real and that the bad guys are not really bad guys in it at all, but it's like a natural
yeah,
reaction to what they've done.
yeah,
And you know that it's an accident and you feel for them for that reason, but it's such a hopeless and traumatizing situation. But yeah, no, I thought that was genius, and that's the kind of thriller that again, that's the kind of thriller that stays with me more so than the sort of jump scare type stuff.
I think nah, like I think we're both got kind of the same taste in that kind of thing. Then because like if you think about it, with the you can't even call them villains because like the people that were after the two boys that went for hunting. So one of them was being an idiot, got cocaine, and done it with one of the daughters. So there was a natural reaction there from the big guy to say, "You fucking messing with a fucking girl and all the rest of it." But then all of a sudden, they've just killed these two people, and then it's like, I knew I didn't trust these fuckers, but you don't. But they didn't see their side, their family men, and you know, and it was such an accidental thing that happened that you literally it was a lose lose situation. So like this is why
Yeah,
I, do you know what I mean? And that's what was so unsettling about it. And then when they were in their hotel rooms, they had to try and sleep at night, and then they got invited to dinner, and it was like, oh, like the last thing we need right now is like to go to dinner right now, and he's like he's puking up in the bathroom. Like I just thought, absolute masterpiece of a film, and the fact it's a Scottish film as well. It's so good. Like
And I think you automatically sort of start to self-analyze as well and go, how would I react in that situation? And I think that, your kind of response to that probably says a lot about you as a person.
yeah,
Because I think most people would like to think they would keep their cool. I mean, I'm generally quite a sort of, nonchalant kind of guy. So, I was watching that, but you're still kind of thinking, oh shit, please just keep it together for your
yeah.
own sake so that you can get out of there. But no, it's a really, really interesting concept, and there's probably not enough films out there that are like that.
So the way I look at it, and maybe I'm just looking at it from like too much of a movie. I don't know, like a kind of not fantasy. I don't really know what the thing is, but like I literally killed this guy's kid by accident. I don't blame you if you shoot me right now. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's like I'll never be able to live with this for the rest of my life that I've accidentally like killed this kid. So like,
Yeah,
and it's like, I just hope that I can get some sort of forgiveness or whatever. Like, you can do what you want because I'm not going to be able to live with this. But and it's the fact that his mate made it worse because his mate's now thinking, well, I'm going to protect my mate at the end of the day, so I'm going to kill the guy. And then it's
yeah,
like, well, but now we've just dug ourselves a deeper hole. And it's like, do you know what I mean? Like, you can think about it all night, mate. Like, as you were saying, like if I was us in that situation, what would you do? Like, for me, I would be like, well, first of all, if it was just a kid, I would just have to openly admit that, like, I would turn myself in and just say, look, I've literally made a big serious mistake, and like there's like I don't know what else to tell you. Do you know what I mean?
yeah. I think it's sort of like the heart of it is all about survival
Yeah,
instinct, isn't it? It's sort of like,
like
what would you do in that
yeah,
situation?
it was very mate, like because I think it's just the more that they done, the more they dug themselves in a deeper like like more bad thing, and then like you can
Yeah,
and I thought what's the guy's name? He's in quite a few films actually. The ginger one.
Tony Curran.
Yeah, yeah. I thought, see, when he was explaining everything to them, but like you don't hear it. It's just like, um, I felt like that was just so realistic and how he just kind of bawled out because he was just like, says like this is what happened, and I'm like, I have no idea how much I'm saying sorry right now, and you don't understand. Like I didn't want to be in this situation in the first place, but what a vile ending though. Like for them to
Yeah,
like make him do that was vile, wasn't it? Like
yeah, it was pretty much the most traumatizing outcome that it could have possibly
yeah,
been, and the sort of the I suppose the action fan in me kind of wanted them to kind of go a bit straw dogs on it and go batshit crazy and somehow manage to overcome and kill the other guys. But the fact that they didn't, that ending stays with you. That ending kind of stays with you. And there's been, even when I look at You Were Never Really Here. I know that they intended not to show the violence because they didn't think that it was necessarily or relevant. It was the idea that this violence was going on, but it's one of those things where that's not what they were trying to do. But we've kind of taken different elements of that plot. So the crime thriller we're doing is about sex trafficking, but one of the things that even though we're kind of inspired by that film, I always find that you need a payoff at the end. Even with When Darkness Falls, which is about someone that goes missing, we made sure to have some really kind of good payoffs violence wise at the end, because I think that if you're going to make something slow burn, you've got to reward the audience at the end for sitting through it. But then Caliber managed to. Uh, I don't know if it's reward the audience is not the right phrase, but it didn't disappoint them because it managed to do something even more traumatic than the rest of the film.
yeah,
So I think there's a lot to be said for the skill within that ending, because you don't come away from that film disappointed. I mean, okay, if they basically slaughtered everyone, you would have probably come away quite satisfied.
yeah,
A little bit like a Taxi Driver type ending, but then what they did was so much more impactful.
yeah. Makes you. I mean, that as a film that I saw in a while that did really affect me and hit me quite hard. And I would say that one that's quite similar that really fucked with me because I was so annoyed that the bad guys won, if you know what I mean. Like, it was Eden Lake.
Oh, so that's literally on my watch list, and it's been sort of at the back of my mind for years, but
Mate,
it's just one that I've never got around to watching.
I just prepare yourself, mate, because like I don't know how like badly you take the films or whatever, but like it's like that hit deep to me because like it was just like I'm all about like when you see like films that kind of show the innocence of the character and like they're just trying to get on with their day and they're just trying to get on with whatever they're doing and it just gets ruined by evil, if you know what I mean. And and there's like, and again, like what I was talking about, like the governors and stuff, because this woman that he cuts, it's like she looks so like innocent. Do you know what I mean? Like it looks like she just doesn't want any part of like this drama, and you could just feel the cry in her voice and that. Like you would say yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I think naturally the audience want the. So you're buffering a wee bit.
I think yours is as well, actually.
Um, yeah, I mean, I think there's something. Obviously, an ending like that stays with you for a lot longer. I mean, from memory, I think The Descent was kind of like that as well. With commands like that, it does stay with you for a lot longer because the good guys haven't kind of got, or the bad guys haven't been brought to justice. Um, you know, cinematically, you come out of something, you're like, yeah, that's that. I mean, Death Wish type stuff. The bad guys got their comeuppance, but it's quite a brave thing to do to have the bad guys win in a situation like that. Because movies generally stick to a certain formula, but I wouldn't be adverse to making something whereby it had an ending like that where it was the bad guys won. Or I think that it is much more impactful when you see the trauma that the characters have been put through, and it's especially when the lead characters are have good intentions. So like Nocturnal Animals, I know that didn't have the ending where the bad guys won, but you feel for them because they're just a nice family going away. Same with The Wicker Man. It's just this detective from the mainland that's going over to try and figure out what happened to this missing girl. So it becomes more traumatizing the more that you identify with the characters. And I guess it's just good filmmaking that you build up that relationship with the main characters where you so desperately want them to win, and then obviously the film kind of snatches that happy ending away from you. Deliverance is a little bit like that as well.
Yeah. Again, there's like that one scene, like that one helpless scene that's just like, imagine just getting put through that much humiliation. Like,
Yeah,
like no one wants to go through that at all. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
And it's just like,
yeah.
but again, that annoys you so much. Do you know what I mean? Like, the latest Rambo film, um, uh, as much as like it's the problem is with today's world is like in film, the good guys win at a film, that gives you a wee bit of a good thing, but sometimes it just doesn't always happen. While I thought the latest Rambo film was actually really good because they took a big part of his life at that point away, and then all of a sudden you just see him going in a fucking. It's like it's like his hate letter to evil and what he would say.
Yeah.
What this is what I would do to you if you took a big part of my life away, and I loved it. Like it's just the fact that some of the brutality in it, like he's taking the collarbone out and stuff. Oh my god, I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think that for me, that film was probably about sort of 75% of the way there. I thought that the 2008 Rambo was really great, and I thought that you know, they showed the brutality of war. They managed to say something, but also provide some really good action at the same time. But I thought Last Blood was a little bit half baked because it was a little bit too short a film.
Very short, yeah.
I kind of wanted a bit more build up in the relationship. There's some really good scenes in it. The one where she dies in the car, that was unexpected because I actually thought that she was going to survive. You know, he was almost the full way home with her. But I wish they had kind of delved a little bit deeper into her character and, you know, what she went through, because you hated the bad guys, but I think that you could have hated them more. It I feel that it was probably one of those things that Stallone did for the money to a
Yeah,
certain degree. I think if he directed it, it would have been probably directed with a lot more gravitas and sensitivity towards the story. It felt a little bit rushed to me
I agree.
in places.
I agree, because like if you look at his Instagram, right, see throughout that whole production, he was putting fan posters up. He wasn't even putting the official poster up for Rambo 5. And then all of a sudden it was like a week later he was still putting fan posters up, and then the official poster finally came out, and I'm just like, wow, like it does seem quite rushed, but like the story itself I thought was really good, but I think you're right with like it didn't give you enough to maybe hate on the villains more than we should have, but it was just the fact that what they'd done to the girl and what they were doing to the girls themselves was enough for me to just be like that. Oh yeah, I would have took your collarbones out and stuffed your hearts out as well. Do you know what I mean? Like it was one of these things. Do you know what I mean? But it was
I
really.
think story direction wise, that's probably where I would have taken it. You know, if Rambo had to go back home at the end of the fourth one, you know, he's too old to be in a war zone, but that's probably where I would have taken it as well. I know that the European cut was like 100 and something minutes long, and the cut that Lionsgate released in the UK and the US was only 89 minutes. So actually, they cut out an entire sequence at the start where Rambo rescues two people from a flash flood, or I think that he fails to rescue one. But they also, I think that they lost a bit of the character development because apparently there was something in there to explain the significance of him using the Doors track when he played it on the loudspeaker down in the tunnel. So I think that there was a bit of setup that they cut out, and again, it goes back to the producers not knowing what the audience want. Like, the audience don't necessarily want it's, you know, gone are the days where action movies need to be 85, 90 minutes long. Audiences don't want that anymore. They would rather just you make a good film with good character development. And the fact that they cut, you know, inexplicably cut 10 minutes off the film, including an action scene, which was totally pointless cutting it out for the UK and US release, would say to me that the producers and the heads of the studios are so disconnected with what the audiences actually want. I mean, stuff like John Wick proves that people will go and sit through a 2-hour action movie no problem.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, mate. And like I was one of the guys that no, I do apologise if you totally disagree with me, but I was a big part in trying to get Zack Snyder's cut of the Justice League out, because I've loved Zack Snyder since I was a kid. Like I loved 300, I loved Watchmen. I thought Man of Steel was an absolute masterpiece. You know, there's some stuff in it that, yes, maybe questionable, but I thought he'd done a really good job at it. I thought Batman vs Superman, the Ultimate Edition especially, was so fucking good in my opinion. Like, and again, I could dive deep into that because like how well he done with like comic book characters, and that's what the Dark Knight kind of destroyed a wee bit, because like the Marvel universe was continuing what they were doing. They were doing what they were supposed to do, but the Dark Knight trilogy kind of killed what DC was actually supposed to become. And I think that, and that's not a bad thing, because again, it made 3 really good movies that we're always going to talk about. But with Batman vs Superman, you're forgetting that there's a lot of comic accuracy in that film, and Batman is supposed to be this hulking figure who's like, you know, he might get a few knocks in a fight, but you could tell he's going to get back up and he's going to beat the shit out of you, right? It's as simple as that. But with Zack Snyder's Justice League, the original intention was supposed to be 2 hours and 50 minutes long. Now, that's not even that bad, because that's an average Avengers film. And I
Yeah.
was like, so okay, great. I'm looking forward to this. And then I heard it got cut to 2 hours long. I'm like, what? You can't have a 2 hour Justice League film. There's no way you can have a 2 hour Justice League film. So I watched it and I'm like, what's happened here? And then with all this fight with Warner Brothers, all these years later, we finally get the Snyder Cut. And I'm like, it's honestly one of my favourite films ever.
I think there's something to be said for letting a director take their creative vision through to completion, because that's the sort of the sheer power that someone like Quentin Tarantino's got. Is that if he makes a 4 hour film, no one turns around and goes, right, Quentin, you need to cut 2 hours out of that. No one does that to him.
No.
I mean, and that is a real rarity. And sometimes I think you've got to kind of trust a director's vision and leave them to get on with it. I mean, even going on a slightly more basic level, I watched the director's cut of The Expendables, and it's only about 10-15 minutes longer than the release cut. But I mean, there's just little scenes in there that you're like, oh yeah, I did wonder how that character got there. And it's just 15-20 seconds of like Dolph Lundgren actually stowed away on Jason Statham and Sylvester Stallone's plane, and that's how he got on the island in the first place. In the director's cut, just shows these little bits where you're like, oh, that makes it a more rounded film and makes it make more sense. And again, you're sort of going, why did they lose 10 minutes from that for absolutely no reason whatsoever? And I think that very rarely do you go and watch a director's cut, whichever ones end up making it onto Blu-ray or special edition, or work prints that leak online. Very rarely do you watch a director's cut and go, nah, I actually prefer the release cut. Most of the time you're like, it's a
No, I
much
agree.
more rounded and better film. And I don't, again, it just goes down to these sort of studio execs not really knowing film or what the audience wants, or, having the foresight to let someone take their vision through in its entirety, even if it is 20 minutes longer than the average cinema film, or, it's went off in a direction that you're not used to. That's how classics are made, not by, you restricting someone to a formula or saying, you need to get that film down under 2 hours or whatever.
No, yeah, absolutely. I think David Fincher was actually the one that started it all, because when he made Alien 3, he got a bad rep for that film, and then he finally released his assembly cut, which was actually a really better film, better, clearer understanding of what the film actually is. But he hated that film because they took complete creative freedom away from him, and they were supposed to be a completely different film and all the rest of it. And he says, well, do you know what? We're literally halfway through production. You're making me forcing me to like change this story a lot. I've got a feeling that I don't even want my name on this in the first place. And it was the same with Quentin Tarantino had an argument with Harvey Weinstein, like about the fact, because obviously Harvey back then was like, he was a bully that we've finally found out for him to be, but he was saying that we need to take out this torture scene because like then everyone can see it. And it says, well, no, I'm not taking out the scene because this is why I'm making this film in the first place. It says like, I'm not like, this is a pinnacle part of the scene, and obviously it's a classic, so you just don't. But yeah, like that is just basically how it all started. And look at that, and look at those two directors, like Fincher and Tarantino, like both of them hardly make a bad film, do they?
Yeah, no, you're right. And I think that obviously Alien 3 was a bit of a curveball, especially compared to the second one. But I suppose I admire that and I understand that sort of outlook of, right, how do you top the second one? Well, let's not try. Let's just do something completely different and explore the sort of, I guess, explore the moral aspects behind the characters. And it was an interesting take on it. I thought it was an interesting take on it. I haven't seen the director's cut. I don't think the release cut is that bad. I understand why people didn't like it, but again, I feel if they just went with the intention and released David Fincher's cut as is. I mean, even the fourth one I think had some good ideas, but I suspect that a few bits of that were left on the cutting room floor as well.
It wasn't a great film, was it? There was a few like I felt like Ripley lost her purpose quite a bit in that film as well. Do you know what I mean? Like I just didn't feel the need for it to kind of go. But again, that was like a Hollywood era that like once it's made money, you have to make another. It's just like that was just a golden rule, wasn't it? It was just like sequels just were completely thrown out like the window when it came to like kind of what's the word, like basically just saying like, you didn't need it, but we're going to do it anyway. Like, but for the that's the thing. Fincher didn't even want to call it the director's cut. He wanted to call it the assembly cut because it wasn't his originally intended film in the first place anyway. So I was like, right. So if you want the best version, here's a version that I think is probably the best way to describe it. And I was, which was good, but yeah, that's a big problem in it. Like, I hope that we never encounter that problem ourselves, but it's I can imagine that I mean, everyone gets it, don't they? Like, do you know who really annoyed me recently, actually, with this comment? Tiki, is it Taika Waititi, how you pronounce his name, but see, in his press tour of Love and Thunder, he said, I mean, like, see, at the end of the day, most directors' cuts suck. We need a bit of control. And I thought, mate, but like, I don't see you as a filmmaker then, because in my opinion, if you're just making a film for a studio, then you're just a puppet. Like, I think that you need to have your print on your films. Well, and he won an Oscar the year before that for Jojo Rabbit as well, which was a great film. But it's just like, well, but how does that make sense? I don't know if you're just maybe forced to say that, but like, I don't agree with that at all.
I don't really agree with that outlook, and I think that sometimes you kind of get if you take Guy Ritchie as an example, he made some really kind of organic, original content that had such a great style back in the day, and then he started doing sort of these bigger budget films, slightly overblown films, and you're thinking, you used to make really good, really kind of interesting films. Now you've kind of caught that Hollywood bug, and I think there was probably a certain amount of studio interference saying, "Well, listen, that's not how we do it here. It's got to go by this certain formula." And he's sort of found his way back in a way because The Gentleman and whatnot. He's had some really good ones recently where it feels like he's returned to his roots. But I suppose if you're, I can't remember who it was. There was a specific director, and I'm never going to think of them, but they sort of started out doing these really, really intelligent thrillers, and then they got hired for a couple of big Hollywood jobs, and you're like, that's rubbish. You basically just kind of sold your soul. And I know there's gun for hire stuff where you're expected to do X, Y, and Z and include X, Y, and Z because that's what the audience, expect. But I think there's a difference between being a filmmaker like Quentin Tarantino, who's got their own style and no one tells them what to do, and then someone who just directs movies, because there's a difference between a filmmaker and someone who just directs movies. And I mean, I know people that, they'll direct kind of 30,000 budget horror movies for like smaller indie labels, and they're essentially just told this is exactly what has to go in here. They've got no creative freedom. This is what the artwork has to look like, and I'm thinking, I've kind of looked into doing that. Tom and I have looked into doing that, and we always come to the same conclusion of, we get the idea. Usually what happens is you pitch it to the company and then that goes into their pot, because what they do instead of acquiring a title is they'll go, right, what's popular in the market right now, right? So instead of us spending 30 grand to acquire a title, let's just give 30 grand in production budget to a production company. They make exactly what we want, and then it's the same result, but you've ensured that you've made something commercial. But the parameters for these are absolutely insane. And Tom's said, he's like, because Baby in the Basket we were originally going to pitch, and he's like, they're going to turn around and say they don't want the A24 atmospheric vibe. They'll just want a sort of psycho nun and some CGI and somebody, that's getting an exorcism performed on them and somebody that's possessed. And he's like, they'll take our original idea and just, make it totally formulaic. So that actually ended up being why we went, let's not pitch this to a company for reverse engineering, because essentially you then just become a gun for hire and it's not your own creative work anymore. So I think that there's filmmakers and then there's people who make films, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely.
Filmmaking.
I think, absolutely. I think most Marvel directors are like that, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Because, like, if you look at most Marvel directors, a lot of them you didn't know before they directed that film. Like, quite a lot of them actually. And do you know, Guy Ritchie, as you were saying, was like such a good example there, because like The Gentleman I thought was absolute class. I thought Man from U.N.C.L.E. was a good attempt. Like obviously, if you're looking at your older ones like Snatch and stuff, like they're masterpieces. But and then me and Liv watched a film recently called Wrath of Man, from like Jason Statham. We loves Jason Statham and he shoots his films, but even from a Jason Statham movie, it was very dull and boring, man. Like I was like,
Yeah,
like you'd think that'd have been a good mix with some good action in it, but it just was not that great for film.
they took that in a bit of a weird
Yeah,
direction because, you know, I did quite enjoy it, but you're right, the pacing was different. It was almost more of a thriller, and Jason Statham was playing this very kind of, he was almost the least interesting character in it, to be honest. But
it's
I
true, isn't
think,
it? No, that's true. Yeah,
yeah, I think from the Jason Statham perspective, you know, he's kind of gone to do these $200 million movies like Meg and Hobbs and Shaw, and they're all kind of PG-13, and you think back in the day, he made the mechanics safe. He made some great action movies, the transporter movies. He's not done anything crank. He's not done anything like that in such a long time. And
mechanic,
Wrath of Man, yeah, Wrath of
mechanic guy.
Man was like maybe 50% back
Yeah.
towards that. So I think I probably appreciated it more than I should
Mm-hmm.
have because I thought, oh, thank fuck Statham's made an R-rated movie
Yeah.
again. And he actually said that Meg was originally meant to be R-rated. He's that the original was much better, and then they toned it right down for PG-13.
I was buzzing
Um,
for Meg because like I was like interested in the concept of the megalodon back in its day, like before it was extinct and stuff. I was interested to see like where it was going from, but then I found out that Statham was in it, and I'm like, okay, this could maybe be a little bit less serious and stuff. But I actually really enjoyed Meg. I don't know what it was like. Again,
yeah,
just like a fun movie, just one of those ones like I had Limitless at the time, and I thought like just a film that I go and use my like make the most out of my Limitless, and I just switched it off and absolutely loved it.
yeah.
Um,
As I actually really enjoyed it as well. But after he made that comment, I kind of thought, oh, I kind of want to see the
yeah,
R-rated
same.
version now.
Yeah.
Did you watch Operation Fortune?
I've not. That's my list. Again, how similar is it compared to like Wrath of Man? Because obviously it's Amazon production and all the rest of it, but I'd like to think.
Tonally, not at all. As far as I'm aware, Amazon acquired that as an original, so they didn't actually. What's the word? They didn't actually commission it.
Right.
I think that they just acquired it as an original because I'm sure the company that was releasing it went bankrupt or was having some kind of problem. Because I know that there's a few Liam Neeson movies that are Amazon originals, but they're actually not. They're just acquisitions that they've then slapped that title on them. But Operation Fortune tonally was nothing like Wrath of Man. To me, it was boring.
Is it quite bad?
It's probably one of Statham's. Yeah, to me, it's probably one of Statham's worst movies. I got to the end and went, "What the that?" It's long, and there's bits in it that are not bad, but generally,
But just like from story wise, it kind of lost its way a wee bit, and I thought the production design of it was absolutely superb. But like yeah, just like near the end, and like some of the deaths just came all of a sudden and stuff, and I'm like, okay, so that happened, like kind of thing, and then I was like, okay, so what's Jason Statham going to do now, basically, like what? And it's just like it wasn't really his usual thing, like, but yeah, like it was like I wouldn't say it's a horrible movie. I would say it's maybe mediocre, if you know what I mean. But like, just because from the I don't know if you do this right. I base it more off the audience score of Rotten Tomatoes, but like, I'm still intrigued to see what the critics say. I disagree with them a lot with like with the movies that they trash a lot as well. But with Wrath of Man, they gave that quite a reasonable score. It was in the 60s, and I was like, okay, I'll probably enjoy this then. But then you have to look at your audience score as well, because like a lot of the audience didn't enjoy it. But I must admit, I thought Gentleman was probably a breath of fresh air when it came to like a Guy Ritchie film, wasn't it? It was.
yeah, it was back to the sort of the really clever stuff that he did before. I mean, I think Wrath of Man, there was probably a better movie in there somewhere. When I watched Den of Thieves reminded me a little bit of Wrath of Man, but almost like done better. So I think that's probably the direction Wrath of Man kind of had to take. One film actually, just talking about who in terms of consistency is pretty good. Gerard Butler's had some really good action movies out there, and he's sort of representing that mid-level sort of 40, 50 million action movie that basically no one else is doing right now. I mean, I loved Cop Shop. I thought Cop Shop was absolute genius. Yeah, Plane I thought was great. That was really intense as well, and that kind of did that thing where you're in one of those situations where you're thinking it's quite realistic, and I think I quite like these sort of like you see the territories that are kind of there's a bit of unrest going on, or there's these kind of like guerrilla armies and whatnot that have taken them over. It was also like that in No Escape with is it called No Escape with Owen Wilson?
Yeah. That was a good film. Where was alright.
Where the bad guys, you don't actually know that much about them. They're just totally ruthless, and they're kind of almost faceless and nameless. But I think that's what made Plane so horrifying, is that there was no reasoning with these guys, that they'd landed right bang in the middle of their patch, and they didn't give a shit who these guys were. They were going to either kidnap them and extort them or kill them.
Like, Green Inferno, wasn't it? And Bone Tomahawk, like two films, like...
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah,
like,
that's got exactly the same thing where the bad guys...
I watched that recently. Holy fuck! That caught me off guard.
Really, really good. Yeah, same. I mean, like I sort of it started off as almost, I don't want to say a boring western, but it started off as a bit of a standard western. Then at some point you were just like, "Whoa, I didn't expect that to happen." And I suppose to a slightly lesser degree, Dragged Across Concrete was kind of like that. And not much happened in it until that heist towards the end, and I was like, oh, and that's the sort of, it's like consequences of your actions kind of thing. I know that Mel Gibson wasn't really that nice a character, or you weren't necessarily rooting for him as much as you probably should have been, but at the end you kind of felt for him because you're like, I really wanted him to get away. I haven't seen Cell. What's the other one? Is it Riot in Cell Block?
Brawl in Cell Block 99 or something.
Brawl in Cell Block. Yeah, so that's the only one that I haven't seen. I don't think that guy has actually directed anything since. What came last? Was it Bone Tomahawk? No, it was
I think it was a Dragged Across, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was very mate. But did that see if the death in the prison, man? I was like, holy shit! Like, do you know what I mean? Again, like that's what I think those movies are good though, because like I want to feel a bit of like hatred towards like this like kind of tribe that have just like for no reason at all they think, okay, we're gonna cut this guy's scalp off and then put something and then just like put like nail this scalp through his mouth and stuff. I was just like, what is happening right now? But it was like so unsettling. Do you know what I mean? Like, oh, it was horrible.
And it's they're kind of totally helpless to it. It's a little, it kind of goes back to Caliber, Nocturnal Animals. It's that sense of helplessness that the heroes are going through, and what makes those the bad guys so horrifying is that there's absolutely no reasoning with them. They don't even speak the same language. There's no way that you can bargain with them. So the heroes, unless they're able to get out of there, they're fucked.
And it was like Green Inferno again, and another helpless thing, which I thought was, there was this guy, he's called Big Will. He does reviews on YouTube, and it's like the brutality of films. And have you ever seen them at all? Have you ever seen like his reviews? So if you put like Big Will and it's like the brutality, and it'll come up like The Hills Have Eyes. Again, The Hills Have Eyes was a brutal film.
And
one of the reviews, it is quite brutal, but one of my new favourite films, and again I was going to talk about when it came to like Blade Runner, watching it more and more and getting more intrigued by it, but I loved it the day, because I'm a sucker for like Nicolas Cage, right? And that's why I was going to talk to you about Wickerman and that remake, even though it's the most shittest remake you've ever seen in your life, but it's so funny. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's so funny how bad it is. But there's this film called Willy's Wonderland, and
Oh, I've seen.
Mate, I don't know what it is, right? I weirdly have watched that film far too many times, and I love just the fact that Nicolas Cage says absolutely nothing in it, and he's just this badass guy in it. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, he's, like in the review, it was like says, and it comes to the ending of Willy's Wonderland, the final showdown of the final boss. You'd think that they would up the levels of the final boss and think that this is going to be a very tough ending. Well, not for Nick. For Nick, he just needs a can of pop, some weapons, and he takes this guy with ease. Do you know what I mean? It's so true, isn't it? Like, I love that film so much. I don't know about you, but
It's such a random film, but it's it's just entertaining.
yeah,
You watch it start finish, you're like, that's just
yeah.
entertaining. Yeah,
Like again, like
my phone battery's about to die, I think.
I nah, yeah. It's what it's absolutely brilliant. But what was I going to say? I know we've kind of the two things I'll say before I'll give you my final question. But were you a fan of Den of Thieves?
Yeah, I did quite like it. Yeah, and I thought that Gerard Butler always manages to kind of play a bit of variations in his characters. He's totally different in playing to Den of Thieves, to Cop Shop, to the Fallen movies. Yeah, I thought it was pretty good. I heard that a sequel's in the works. I mean, I think that, yeah, I thought it was pretty
Yeah,
good.
basically, it's like a rip off of Heat into it, but at the same time, it had its own
Yeah.
twist. But again, like you're not going to touch Heat. But I thought it was a good film. An underrated Jason Statham film I thought was Homefront. Have you ever seen Homefront?
I like Homefront. I
I
thought,
thought it was
yeah,
really good.
originally I think, I'm not sure if he wrote the script. I thought he did, but
Stallone.
Stallone was meant to play the lead,
He
yeah,
wrote it as well.
and then passed it over to Statham when he thought that he was too old or not right for the part. To be fair, I think it would have worked with either of them in it, in all honesty. But yeah, no, and James Franco's an interesting bad guy because he doesn't really do the bad guy shtick. He sort of plays it quite realistically, but it is a good film, yeah, and it's well shot. I quite like that one.
In Spider-Man, for example, he plays the villain, but like he doesn't feel like a villain. He just feels like a guy that there's a purpose there for him to hate Spider-Man in the first place, isn't there? So like,
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's smartly played for him to be the villain. But nah, yeah. The Wait, do you know what? Like, we'll need to do another filmmakers on filmmaking or something because like I love talking to you about this, but when it comes to Baby in the Basket, just last thing, can you give me like just maybe a quick synopsis of like the film and just like kind of give me an understanding on what I've like gonna go in and see because I've not seen like obviously a trailer or anything yet. So
Yeah, so what happens is basically it's set in the 1940s at a nuns' convent on an island off the coast of Scotland, and the war's going on. Obviously, they're privy to it, but they're not involved in it, and there's a certain kind of unrest at the convent. They feel like there's some sort of sense of dread looming over them, and there's a storm, and one night during the storm, a cloaked figure leaves a baby in a basket on the step, and the nuns take it in and decide to care for it, and then they'll take it back to the mainland after the storm passes. But one of the nuns begins to suspect that the child is the son of the devil, and they lock her up for her own good because they think that she's just been driven mad by the isolation and the storm. And then these weird things start to happen, so they start to question whether there's weight in her theory that the child is the son of the devil, or whether they're all just being driven mad by the isolation. And that's essentially it.
that's very much street because again that's like Omen kind of vibes and like kind of
Yeah.
Rosemary's Baby and like mate, I look forward to that then. I like that, mate. Do you know what? You gave me the idea of like see the storm side of it as well that you're kind of way. It gives me White House vibes as well.
Yeah, well, yeah, the lighthouse was we had a kind of mood board and some stuff on it. So there was lighthouses on there, and then
I forgot because you had your mood board and you had the films that were kind of inspired by it and stuff, and like
yeah.
awesome. And is it going to be in black and white the whole thing?
Well, what we're going to do, because you're sort of, I mean, if you've got Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe, you can put something in black and white, and people will still watch it. But I think the intention really is to get it graded twice, once in black and white, because I really did, once we shot the teaser and put it in a black and white, we're like, oh. But I think just for the distribution commercial side of it, we'll probably do a colour and a black and white. And then whether the black and white becomes a bonus or becomes something that we maybe use for a screening or whatever, we'll see. But I think certainly the type of film that kind of should be shot in black and white because it's more atmospheric and representative of the time period that it's set in. But we're going to shoot it as if we're shooting it for colour and then do two grades. So
I like that, mate. No, I'm kind of. That's got me more. You've kind of sold the film to me there, so I'm looking forward to it. I'll root for you the whole way, and I'll definitely invest in it when I get the chance and all the rest of it. So, but now, I'm looking forward to it. And as I was saying, I appreciate you coming on, taking your time to talk to one another about what we love doing and all the rest of it. And yeah, I hope we work in the future as well, mate. I'd like to work with you, and I'd like you to maybe get involved in some of my next projects if it's feasible and all the rest of it. So
cool. No, that'd be good, man. I appreciate you having me on. It's been a really good chat.
I've enjoyed it. We seem to have the same kind of outlook in film for sure. That's so that's all I ask for in conversation, isn't it?
Yeah, no, definitely.
Well, mate. Good luck with Baby in the Basket. And also, I'm looking forward to the other premieres if I'm possibly get an invite and all the rest of it, and I'll give you an invite to Jacob Tower when it comes out. We're not far away. Hopefully because we've got a target now to try and submit it into Glasgow Film Festival. So
right, okay.
The main goals anyway. So just a lot of work to do into it. So
yeah. No, that sounds good. Good,
man. Right, well, I'll let you go, mate, but we'll keep in touch, yeah?
Cool, yeah, all right.
Thanks.
Take care, man.
Right, thanks again. I'll see you soon.
See ya.